Prologue. Naruto gazed avidly through the window at the children playing happily in the park across his home. Home, that's what he called it. It was a small and empty apartment. What did you expect when the only inhabitant was a 6-year-old boy with messy blonde hair and sad blue eyes that almost reflected his soul's emptiness? I just don't understand. Why do they hate me so? What did I do wrong? He had asked himself that question for a very, very long time. Ever since he could remember, he had tried everything to befriend those around him, trying to find at least one person willing to be with him, even if it was only for a short amount of time. All attempts have failed. If he walked towards a group of kids, they would either walk away or be dragged away by their parents. If he waited in the playground for them to return, they would come, see him there on the swing and leave once again. He even tried to walk from house to house to introduce himself. All that ever brought him was angry glares that he knew he didn't deserve or cold contempt, and asked icily to leave the premises and never come back. The child of 6 sighed again, trying to will away the tears and to ignore the giant black hole that was currently consuming his heart. Even my nanny couldn't stand me. The child thought about his previous guardian. A young lady of 20 or so. She looked after him for the past 3 years. That is, if looking after was the word that described her actions. She rarely came to visit him, if only on the weekends to see if he was still alive. Brought lots of instant ramen and other groceries for him, then left him to his own boiling of water and cooking of meals. He had learnt from an early age that he had no one to depend on, only himself. So even at the young age of 4 or 5, she had already taught him how to go to the laundromats for washing clothes, how to clean up the house, and how to sew ripped clothes. She didn't exactly teach him much though, only ordering him around and showing him the basics. He sort of missed her. For a better part of 3 years, she was his only companion. Though she always ignored his attempts at conversation and stayed at least a meter away from his physical presence. And then, a few months before, she had quit her position and left Konoha without telling him or even the Hokage. Now he lived alone, completely alone. A soft knock on his door startled the young boy. No one had ever visited him in his apartment before, even his previous nanny had just barged in, so he was unaccustomed to the sound. A second knock made him realize he wasn't dreaming, and he ran towards the doorway and slid the doors open. Outside his door revealed the 3rd Hokage and another woman he had never seen before. Naruto, happy that he had actually gotten guests in his house, silently ushered both of them in and tried to make them comfortable, sitting on his old and ragged couch. The 3rd Hokage smiled gently at Naruto, though a gleam of sadness was clearly reflected from his old and wise eyes. Still so innocent and pure. How much longer can this child stand the loneliness? The Hokage broke off his musings with a slight shake of his head and went straight to the point. Naruto. Naruto looked up at the Hokage. This, indicating the woman sitting next to him, is Mrs. Tanuki. She is your new guardian and babysitter. Naruto smiled brilliantly at that statement. Finally, someone who would stay with me and look after me. He then turned towards the kindly-looking old lady. She had curly white hair all bundled on top of her head and was wearing a traditional kimono. She smiled and nodded towards him, and he nodded back in silent greeting. After a few more minutes of discussion, the Hokage left, leaving Naruto and his new caretaker still sitting in the lounge. Naruto shifted nervously on his seat. This was his only chance at gaining a friend, maybe even a family member. He had to be on his very best behavior. Mrs. Tanuki smiled at him again and said in the gentlest tone possible, "It's getting late. Maybe you should take a nap, Naruto." Naruto smiled at the old lady again, nodded and went silently to take said nap. If he had turned around at that moment, he would have seen the gentle smile on the old lady's face disappear to form an ugly sneer. Equals 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 equals. That night, Naruto had another nightmare. He dreamt of those same villagers that hated him, despised him, wanting to kill him. He could feel their angry fingers closed around his throat, choking him, stealing away his oxygen. I can't breathe, he realized. It's just a dream. 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 He mentally repeated that phrase to himself. I still can't breathe. Naruto panicked. I've got to wake up. Wake up. Naruto forced his eyes wide open, quickly adjusting to the dark of the night, and saw something that will haunt him for the rest of his life. He wasn't just dreaming about being choked to death. He was being choked to death, and by none other than the nice old lady sitter that he had just met that afternoon, though she no longer looked nice at all. Mrs. Tanuki's hair was out of its usual bun, and it framed wildly around her, making her look like a mad witch. Her eyes, too, were wide but with a small pupil, enlarging the area of her green irises, making her look even more insane. Her breath was shallow and harsh, as if she was taking away his breathing. Her lips curled into a nasty and cruel sneer, and she watched the young Naruto turn even paler and desperately gasping for air. Naruto's panicked mind realized another assessment. Mrs. Tanuki is trying to kill me. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. He started struggling to get out of her grip. She tightened her hands around his throat, leaving a very painful and visible mark there. Suddenly, a violent rage erupted throughout Naruto's body. I will not die by such a devious hands. Equals 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 equals. Naruto felt a sudden lurch of strength and energy. He kicked Mrs. Tanuki away, forcing her to release his bruised throat. She toppled backward by his powerful kick, knocking against the walls, and slid down to the floor. A small trickle of blood rained down her forehead. While she was down for the moment, Naruto took in full gulps of sweet air. He pressed his hands on his bruised throat and can feel the juncture where she had strangled him. After catching some of his breath, he asked her, wincing at the harsh and raw tone of voice due to his sore throat. Why? Mrs. Tanuki slowly sat up from her position on the ground. She raised her head to meet him in the eye. Naruto gasped at the raw anger and raging hatred being openly displayed in her eyes. She opened her bleeding lips and sent an icy remark back at him. Because you killed my husband and my sons. Confused and frightened, Naruto huddled into himself more. After all, he was only 6 years old. What could he have done to hurt Mrs. Tanuki's husband and sons? It didn't make any sense to him at all. As if sensing his confusion, Mrs. Tanuki gave him a cruel smirk and told him the secret of his birth. You are the creature known as the Nine-Tails Demon Fox, the destroyer of thousands of lives, and very nearly destroyed Kanehigekure 6 years ago. That, she spat in hatred, beast killed my husband and all 4 of my sons. That monster slaughtered all of them. And it is sealed inside you. You are that Kyuubi no yokai. Naruto shuddered even more, shaking violently, trying to deny her accusation and yet knowing, deep down inside of him, that the villagers all had to have a reason to hate him. They all must have a reason for neglecting him, hating him, wishing for his death. And now he knew the truth. You are a burden on everyone here. Naruto started to shake his head in denial. It would be better if you're dead. Now knowing the truth, Naruto was not sure if that wasn't the correct solution after all. He would no longer need to hurt anymore. You've been lied to all your life. Heart rate increasing rapidly, breath coming in short, shallow gasps. You killed so many people and ruined so many lives. Shuddering violently, whether in denial or fear or shock, Naruto didn't know anymore. And in a way, he didn't care, he just wanted it to stop. You are a creature that shouldn't exist. Is she right? Should I just die? Do I not deserve to exist? Does no one care? No one will ever accept you for what you are. You monster! Demon! Hell spawn! Naruto shut his eyes tightly, feeling Mrs. Tanuki's old, bony hands clutch around his sore throat again. This time it would end. This time he wouldn't stop her, no matter what. To Naruto it was an eternity. He felt his life literally being squeezed out of him. His lungs burned for fresh air, any fresh air, and yet his hands hung loose by his side. It would all be over soon anyway. Darkness crept into the corners of his eyes. He wasn't even sure if he still had them opened anymore. He felt his heart falter over several beats as it started slowing down due to not having enough air to keep it beating. Only a little while more and he would no longer need to hurt. Naruto lost consciousness. Equals 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 equals. Pain. That was all he felt. Is hell supposed to be so dark? I don't think heaven would let a monster such as myself go in, would it? What is this place? Slowly but surely conscious thought returned to him, and for a moment he was bombarded by sensory overload. His eyes hurt, his throat hurt, his ears were ringing. Every time he breathes in, it hurts. Wait, breathe. I'm breathing. Indeed, Naruto realized he was still breathing, though each haggard breath was causing more pain than relief. That was when he noticed a sound. The sound was soft and muffled, as if far away. But when Naruto concentrated on it, he realized it was someone calling him. Someone close. Don't die. Don't die. Breathe. Breathe, Naruto. Who could possibly want me alive? Who would care? After a while of listening to the voice he didn't recognize continue, asking him not to give up hope, not to let go and die. Naruto was really curious as to who his would-be savior was. After all, if he was still alive, that basically meant that someone had saved him, right? Painfully slow, Naruto forced open one of his eyelids. He saw a boy of around 16, above him. The boy was the one who was currently encouraging him to breathe smoothly while he underwent the resuscitation techniques on Naruto. The boy realized Naruto had opened an eye and was looking at him. He smiled in relief, glad his young charge had made it. Who are you? Naruto thought. Though he didn't want to, Naruto fell into unconsciousness again. Too tired to stay awake any longer, Naruto fell limp in the arms of his mysterious savior. Equals 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 equals. 3 days later, Naruto finally woke up from his semi-conscious coma. It seemed his mind was completely closed off from the outside world after the shocking revelations disclosed by Mrs. Tanuki, and Naruto needed a lot of time to recover. Physically, the marks on his neck were completely gone. But psychologically, even the doctors didn't even know if Naruto would ever recover from this episode. It may haunt him forever in nightmares and/or other psychological inhibitions. Naruto woke to an unfamiliar ceiling, and after a while decided to sit up. Even though he was in unfamiliar territory, even a 6-year-old can recognize a hospital room. He sat silently with a blank expression on his face. Suddenly, the door to his room opened and in came the third Hokage, the boy whom saved his life, another tall man with long white hair tied in a ponytail and someone who looked like a doctor. Naruto stared silently at them each, studying one intently before moving to the others. The doctor came around to check up on his status and recording the results on a chart. Naruto waited for someone to speak, and he waited more. The third Hokage coughed to get Naruto's attention. I'm very sorry about Mrs. Tanuki, Naruto. I should never have set her up as your babysitter without a complete background check on her life and see if she is any threat to you. I sincerely apologize for this tragic event on your life. It is my fault that you had almost died. He bowed low. Naruto looked blankly back at him. By the end of Hokage's speech, the doctor had finished his analysis. You seem fine, young man. None of the finger marks on your throat are visible, your lungs are fine, voice cords are fine, and there doesn't seem to be any brain damage either. You're a lucky kid. The doctor chuckled in the silent room, causing him to shift nervously afterward at the tense atmosphere. Ah, I guess I should go check on the other patients. If you feel any pain at all, young man, just call for me. With that final remark, the doctor left the room in a slight hurry. Naruto stretched the silence out even longer, before he finally decided upon what he should say next. Did you send her? The third Hokage blinked in shock. No, Naruto. I would never. Taking a few steps towards Naruto, the third stopped immediately when he saw Naruto winced and moved away from him. He's afraid of me. Oh God, what have I done? Sighing in sadness, the third Hokage looked up to Naruto again with pleading eyes. Believe me, Naruto, I would never send an assassin against you. Never. Yes, I admit it was my fault for not checking out her background completely, but I was just so happy that I had found someone to look after you that I wanted to get the processing underway as soon as possible. I would never have thought that she would turn out the way she did. The third Hokage winced again as his wording. He had just revealed to Naruto that no one was willing to take care of him. That's why he was desperate enough to employ Mrs. Tanuki in the first place. He watched as Naruto shivered quietly to himself, feeling more and more guilt pile up on his shoulders. Naruto, the third Hokage said as gently as he could. I would not hurt you, ever. How can I trust you? How can I trust anyone? Once again shocked at those quietly whispered words, the third Hokage realized that Naruto was having problems with whom he could trust, with whom he could confide in without the threat of death hanging over his head. There was only one solution to this, to tell him the truth. Naruto, I would never hurt you, because I owe your father a depth of gratitude even beyond his grave. Naruto looked up at him sharply. He had never heard of anything about his own parents. No one even knew who they were, just that his name was Uzumaki Naruto. Yes, child, your father is the Yondaime. Naruto's eyes widened. What? Though only a whisper, that one word cut through the entire atmosphere in the room. It was your father's wish to hide your true name from prying eyes, if only to protect you from those who held a grudge against the fourth's name. I made a vow to obey his wishes, concealing your identity as his son and trying to give you as normal of a childhood as possible. He laughed cynically. It seems all my plans have completely failed to protect you, my child. But, Kyuubi, at that one word all three winced visibly. It seems Naruto knew more of the truth than they had anticipated. Oh well, no hiding the rest of the truth now. Your father never meant for you to be hated by the villagers. He wanted you to be seen as a hero of this village, being burdened by a destiny beyond your control and yet continuously protecting the villagers from the threat of the Kyuubi no Yuko as its container. He never imagined that the villagers would turn on you and start thinking of you as the scapegoat for their pain. For that pain, I am eternally sorry. He sighs. I've tried my best to limit the damage, by forcing all the adults to never speak of this secret, and hoping that the next generation will come to accept you. But I failed in that idea as well. Instead of seeing you as what you are, they simply followed their parents' example, and started to hate you too for no apparent reason. The third Hokage sighed again, and finally looked towards Naruto. He had lowered his head in shame as he explained everything. To his surprise, Naruto was smiling, albeit a small, gently smile, but a smile nonetheless. Naruto took a deep breath, calmed his racing heart slightly, and looked towards his savior. I never got to thank you. The older boy smiled. I'm Irika. I've just become a chunin, and while I was walking home from my training, I heard a commotion at your place. At this point, Irika lowered his head too in shame. Nobody was willing to help. We all heard the screams, but nobody else cared. So I came. Why? Why did you save me? Why wouldn't I? I've heard of you. You're an orphan too. They probably died by the Nine Tails, right? I won't deny the fact that I am an orphan, and that both my parents did die fighting the Kyuubi. Irika walked closer and closer towards the young and fragile Naruto. His eyes, so young yet so frightened. No one deserves to hold that much anguish and fear in their eyes. Then, Irika did something which surprised all members in the room. He pulled Naruto into a hug and continued his story. But Naruto, you're not the demon Kyuubi. You are Naruto Uzumaki. You are you, that's all you can be, from now until the rest of your life. Naruto was at first shocked into immobilization. But after the rest of Irika's speech, he melted into the warmth of Irika's arms. He had never, in his entire life, ever felt so safe and secure before. Never had he ever been hugged this intimately and maternally. Never had he felt so welcomed. I know the pain of loneliness. Sometimes I watch you. You play pranks and cause havoc, acting like an idiot to get attention. No one to compliment, no one to acknowledge, and most of all, no one to care. It was the most painful thing in life. I watched and I realized what a fool I have been to assume you were the same as everyone say. But a demon will not know pain, Naruto. It does not understand happiness, sadness, loneliness. All the Kyuubi knows is rage. You're not the Kyuubi, you're Naruto. Remember that. Finally, Irika released Naruto and he felt elated at seeing Naruto's brilliant smile again. Ahem, coughed the man with long white hair. This is all so sentimental and sweet. But when can I finally get going? Naruto asked curiously, Who are you? The man stood in a posing stance, feet apart with one hand raised up front. It's been said that I'm the Toad Sannin, and that's not all. In the north, in the south, east, and west, the legendary three ninjas white-haired frog-summoning child, the handsome man that can silence a crying child. I am Jiraiya-sama. That's me. 1. Naruto blinked innocently. Am I supposed to know about you? Jiraiya's mouth hanged open in speechlessness, while the third Hokage is rubbing his forehead, sweat dropping and slightly ashamed of Jiraiya's performance. Irika was snickering to himself by Naruto's side. The third Hokage sighed in shame but continued on with the rest of the discussion at hand. Naruto, I'd like you to meet one of my own previous students, Jiraiya, one of the legendary senins of Konoha. It's nice to meet you, Jiraiya-san. Naruto bowed slightly in acknowledgement. Since I can't trust anyone here in Konoha to take care of you, I've asked Jiraiya to. I can take care of Naruto, Hokage-sama. Irika interrupted. Naruto shot up with hope. Hokage shook his head. I'm sorry, Irika, but you are a new Chunin and will be very busy working and other stuff. Not to mention, you are probably not strong enough to keep Naruto completely safe. With one failed murder attempt, how many more do you think will take place? I'm really sorry, Irika Naruto, but there is no other choice in the matter. Seeing the disappointed looks on both Irika and Naruto's faces, Hokage sighed again but refused to back down on his decision. I've decided that it would be better to send Naruto to travel with Jiraiya, away from the potential assassins and hateful villagers in Konoha. Jiraiya is arguably the strongest person in Konoha next to myself, that is, Jiraiya would be able to look after you properly, protect you from any attempts on your life, as well as train you into a powerful ninja as well. You're sending me away. You don't want me here, Naruto accused softly. No, that's not it at all, Naruto. The Hokage looked up pleadingly to Naruto, willing the 6-year-old child to understand. I don't want you to ever be hurt again, and the only way I can do that isn't to lock you away from everybody. It's to make you so strong that you can fend for yourself, decide for yourself, and make a life for yourself. I am offering you that freedom, Naruto. The freedom to be whoever and whatever you want to be. Naruto gazed from the Hokage's pleading expression to Jiraiya's nonchalant one. How do I know I can trust him? Pointing at Jiraiya. Ha 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 ha. That's a good one, kiddo. Looking straight into Naruto's eyes. Who do you think trained your father in the first place? Hell, people would beg, bribe, do anything to become my disciple, and here you are, suspicious of me? The one and only Jiraiya-sama, master to the genius hero, the Yondaime himself. You trained my father? Naruto asked incredulously. Of course, Jiraiya scoffed. Why? Don't believe me? You don't look very strong, Naruto said innocently, which immediately made Jiraiya's face fall. You remind me more of a pervert than a senin. He sweat drops. And you don't seem to be the responsible type either. Irika and the third Hokage moved from chuckling to outright laughing. Heh, I think this is the start of a wonderful friendship, kiddo, grumbled Jiraiya. Equals 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 equals. A week after was the set-off date for Jiraiya and Naruto's journey. I promise I'll be back, Irakanizan. And when I do, I'll become a very strong ninja and make both you and my father proud. Ha ha ha. I'll be waiting for you, Naruto. Have a safe journey. And remember to write to me. Okay? Irika called back. K. Naruto turned around and rushed towards Jiraiya, who had already left several minutes before. Naruto stayed behind to say his final goodbyes to his most important person, Irakanizan, whom had just taken up a position as an office assistant in the Ninja Academy. He would miss Irakanizan, as well as the third Hokage, and the ramen at Ichiraku. But to tell the truth, he was very excited about leaving Konoha as well. It'll be a great big adventure. A new start. A new beginning in his life. Wait up, pervert Sannin. Since it was confirmed to Naruto that Jiraiya was indeed an open pervert, Naruto had called him Pervert Sannin non-stop, partly for amusement and partly because it had become Jiraiya's unofficial nickname, given to him by Naruto. After half a day of walking, they finally reached the edges of the Fire Country. If he took one more step, he would have officially left his home country. Naruto took a deep gulp of air and took that one step forward. Only then did Naruto look back. Will we ever return? Pervert Sannin. Yeah, we will. Have faith, Naruto. Have faith. Both turn back to their journey. However, once they have left the Fire County, none of them had expected that they would leave it for the next 6 years. Chapter 1. Finally, after 6 years of travel, Jiraiya had decided it was time for both him and Naruto to return to Konoha. Both of them had their own reasons to choose such a time to return to Konoha. One, Naruto would make it back just in time to participate in the Konoha Academy graduation. Not that Naruto could possibly fail now, knowing what he knows about ninja techniques and such. The good thing about having the pervert Sannin as your guardian and sensei was that whenever he wishes to scout around for new inspiration for his books, that basically meant he'll just teach you a new technique and leave you to your own demise, sometimes for days on end. Naruto got used to his behaviors very soon though, and they shared something like a love-hate relationship. For the past 6 years, Jiraiya and Naruto had literally traveled around the world twice over. The rain country, stone, sand, wave, grass, lightning, mist, you name it, they've been there. During their travels, Naruto had also matured a lot for his age, though for good or bad, it's still debatable. Emotionally, he doesn't trust people very often. He understood that for most people, if they knew what resided in him, would hate him immediately, so he doesn't readily trust easily. He had also become very cautious in his actions and not very talkative. Since there were usually only 2 people traveling together, him and Jiraiya, pranks and other jokes were not that appreciated. Naruto had also become rather antisocial and very reserved with his thoughts. Physically, he was still considered short for his age, but had developed firm, lean muscles on every inch of his body. His taijutsu was excellent. He excels in speed, power, stealth, agility, and even sensory detection, using his 9-tailed senses. As for his knowledge in ninjutsu and jinjutsu, he had vast amounts of ninjutsu techniques at his disposal, and he can manipulate his chakra to render any genjutsu useless. His only weakness is that he still does not have full control over his chakra manipulation and control. So the 2 of them set off to return to Konoha. equals 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 equals. Naruto and Jiraiya arrived back in Konoha on the very day of the Konoha Academy Genin selection exam, and Naruto made it just in time to participate in said exam. Everyone was very surprised by his reappearance, those that remembered him anyway, but only Iruka showed any true delight in seeing him again. In the village, all the parents whom had recognized his whiskers like scars on his face felt a little apprehension for his return. But the third Hokage had already announced that if anyone dares to make a move on the boy, they would be executed immediately. The children, those who remembered him at all remembered him to be the outcast he always were in the past and generally stayed out of his way, which he was fine with anyway. Due to Naruto's sudden reappearance and registration to undertake the Academy Genin selection exam, he was put as the last to perform the test. And so, he spent most of his time sleeping, not caring of how the other children performed, nor was he interested in what the exam procedures were until his turn. Finally, it was Naruto's turn to take the test and be judged. The other children in the class were all curious as to his strengths, but they held not much hope for his scores. The first test was to test his kunai throwing skills, which he completed onto the bullseye of a board even before Iruka finished speaking. The second test was to test his knowledge of the ninja rules, in which he simply replied he didn't remember any of them. This infuriated Mizuki, but Iruka gave Naruto the go-ahead. This was because Naruto did have an excuse, considering he had only gone to the academy school for less than 1 year, when he was 5, and couldn't possibly be expected to remember all the rules back then. But to finish the third and final test, Naruto had to complete a fully functional Bunshin no Jutsu. Naruto made no visible hand seals, but his Bunshin suddenly appeared next to the target and retrieved his kunai. Later, Naruto was announced to pass the Genin selection exam. Due to the unexpected addition to the student number, Iruka did not have any extra shinobi head protector to give to Naruto, and so, he asked him out for ramen instead. Naruto still loved ramen. After eating at least 15 bowls of ramen at Ichiraku, Naruto of course, Naruto and Iruka visited the Heroes Memorial in Konoha. Iruka then reminded Naruto of his own life story and explained that at first, he too had hated Naruto because it was the Nine Tails that had killed his parents. But after watching Naruto grow up, he realized that Naruto and him were very much alike and that Naruto wasn't the Nine Tails. Iruka apologized for not being there to help Naruto before and gave Naruto his own head protector, stating that as long as Naruto wore his head protector, it would be as if Iruka himself was right next to him. Naruto smiled for the first time in 3 whole years and hugged Iruka tightly in appreciation. Naruto then went to meet the third Hokage to get his ninja registration done and also asked the third Hokage if he could look at the image of his father, the fourth Hokage. It was there, in front of his father's portrait, that Naruto made his promise. He didn't really call Konoha home anymore, and he didn't very much like the people here, but since his father was willing to sacrifice himself and the future of his son for this village, Naruto would honor his father's legacy and continue to protect Konoha for him, until the day he himself realized what was so important about Konoha. The third had overheard all of this and was about to explain to Naruto, but decided against it. It would be better for Naruto to learn for himself and create a home here for himself. Equals 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 equals. The next day, Naruto waited patiently on his seat while all the other children clown around. A few of the bullies tried to intimidate him like they did before he left, but they didn't even get a raised eyebrow for their efforts. A girl named Sakura Haruno sat herself next to him and ogled the infamous Uchiha Sasuke. When the names of the members of Team 7 were read out, only Sakura had any expression, happiness to be paired with Sasuke. Naruto didn't even flinch, but all the other students were still wondering why he was paired with Uchiha Sasuke unless he was really weak. The truth of the matter was that Naruto had told Iruka to let him pass but still retain the same status as he had been before he left the academy 6 years ago, as the lowest ranked member of the class. Irika didn't know why he requested this but followed his wish anyway since the third Hokage also made such a request. They waited for 3 hours in class for their late sensei. When Naruto finally felt the man's chakra, in a fit of rage, he threw a kunai at Kakashi, which was caught by the Jounin ninja, of course. Kakashi smiled and laughed nervously at the children and apologized for his lateness. The introductions were made with the only interesting part coming from Naruto. My name is Uzumaki Naruto. I like pause. Ramen. I dislike many things. I have no ambition and no dream, but my only wish is to understand why my father was willing to die to protect this village. Kakashi was shocked by this response, and he concluded that Naruto knows about his father. After that, Kakashi gave his normal speech about survival training the next day. Naruto ignored the no breakfast rule and ate some that morning before going to the training grounds. After another 3 hours of waiting, Kakashi finally arrived and told them the new rules to the real Genin selection exam. While Sakura and Sasuke immediately hid in the surrounding areas, Naruto just stood where he was and stared. Kakashi asked him if he was going to attack anytime soon or did he have a strategy. Naruto simply answered, I have no wish to become a genin or anything in life. I have no reason to fight against you for those stupid bells. If the other two wanted it so much to become shinobis, let them. I'll just wait for the next time. Kakashi was silently seething at Naruto's nonchalant attitude. In a way, Naruto was kind enough to volunteer being the one that fails so that Sasuke and Sakura could become genins. But him simply giving up without even trying infuriated Kakashi, and he snapped back. Expecting a result without even trying, willing to wait for an uncertain future. If you continue having these kinds of attitude, you will never understand why your father did what he did. You wouldn't even be able to go through half the things your father went through for Konoha. You are nothing but a coward that runs away from facing the past deeds of your father if you continue to turn your back from this absolute truth. The truth in which you yourself must undergo hardship to find answers for. Naruto grew angry at Kakashi's outburst and charged him, which was exactly what Kakashi had wanted him to do in the first place. Firstly, Naruto attacked Kakashi using taijutsu to test out his reflexes and reaction rate. Since Naruto was already very good with taijutsu, both Kakashi and Naruto had to parry each other for some time. After dodging Naruto's fist, Kakashi grabbed one of Naruto's arm, slammed him onto the ground, twisted said arm at the wrist and elbow until Naruto was rendered immovable with Kakashi sitting on his back. Kakashi was about to speak when the Naruto in his hand suddenly disappeared. Realizing it was a Kage Bunshin, shadow replication, he was fighting. Kakashi saw in the corner of his eye another Naruto rushing at him at top speed. He couldn't dodge in time, so Kakashi blocked the kick with his arms. The block had enough force to almost crack Kakashi's bones as he was dragged along the sand due to the momentum and impact. Naruto didn't stop though, as he ran after Kakashi again and he threw several kunais in his direction. Kakashi jumped up to avoid the kunais but widened his eyes as Naruto performed his first seal. The Gokakyu no Jutsu, powerful fireball. 1. After the giant flame blast, all that was left was a burning log. Kakashi had used Kawarimi no Jutsu to replace himself with an inanimate object. However, Naruto did not lose focus as he immediately threw several shurikens towards a certain tree near the edge of their battle. Kakashi jumped away from the tree only milliseconds before those shurikens reached it and blasted half the tree into small bits of burning wood chips. Chakra-reinforced shurikens, thought Kakashi as several Narutos, Kage Bunshins, started attacking at the same time, surrounding him first, then striking forward one at a time in a motion of in-out of Kakashi's danger zone. Even though Kakashi was keeping up with their movements, but he was also feeling slightly pressured. He then realized he doesn't have enough time to strike down any of the Naruto Bunshins before another takes its place, and it also gave him no time to perform any seals either. After quickly blocking one of the clone's attacks, Kakashi jumped up into the air and performed another type of fire blast seal. Katon Karyu Enden, fire type, fire dragon blast. 2. The massive flame blast burnt up all the remaining clones, but the real Naruto was nowhere to be found. Kakashi landed silently, finding himself enjoying the challenges that Naruto had given him, though a little bit out of breath than usual. Since he was already on his guard, suspicious of Naruto's attacks, Kakashi immediately noticed the many kunais and shurikens flying his way. Wondering why Naruto would do the same thing twice, he was slightly taken back when one of the kunais set off a trap directly behind him. He dodged the rest of oncoming weapons that the trap had flung at him, wondering when did Naruto had the time to set up such an elaborate trap. That was the moment he was attacked by a hidden Sasuke from his side. Kakashi mentally sighed. He had completely forgotten that he still had two other students to contend with, not just Naruto. And Sasuke seems to be just as good, if a little bit less cautious than Naruto had been. Defending against all of Sasuke's punches and kicks, he was surprised that Sasuke actually touched the bells at all, and immediately kicked away himself. Naruto had not been interested in the bells. If he had been, then maybe the bells would have been long gone by now. During the previous fights, Naruto had only been angry at Kakashi directly and fought him over said statements, not for the purpose of getting the bells. Turning his attention back to the situation at hand, Kakashi realized that Sasuke had repeated the same seals as Naruto, the Gokakyu no Jutsu, powerful fireball technique. But this time, Kakashi did not use Kawarimi no Jutsu to escape the flames. Instead, he went underground and used Doton, Shinjuzanshu no Jutsu, Earth type, inner decapitation technique, 3, against Sasuke, grabbing him by his feet and pulling him down until only his head is above the ground. It was just at that moment that Sakura came through the bushes and saw this scene. She had been trying to find Sasuke for a while now, since Naruto's fight against Kakashi. After hearing Sasuke's grunt of pain, she immediately ran after the sound, only to come out of the clearing and seeing Sasuke's supposedly decapitated head on the ground. Naturally, she screamed then fainted, even though Kakashi was still there crouching and looking at her curiously. Damn, I didn't even get to use any genjutsu on her and she still fainted. Oh well. Slightly disappointed at Sakura's bad performance, Kakashi was completely caught off guard when Naruto materialized behind him and tried to stab him with a kunai. Kakashi barely missed the attack, though his shoulder did get scratched. Naruto then threw said kunai in Kakashi's direction. While Kakashi was busy avoiding the kunai, Naruto slammed his left hand into the ground, grabbed onto Sasuke's shoulder and pulled him out of the ground. With his free right hand, Naruto then threw a smoke bomb on the ground, creating a smoke screen and escaped with Sasuke. Kakashi was starting to get nervous as to what ideas Naruto has when he freed Sasuke. Equals 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 equals. On the other side of the clearing, hidden behind leaves, Sasuke wrenched his shoulder out of Naruto's hold and glared at him. Naruto glared right back at Sasuke, then moved his mouth slowly, mentally wondering if Sasuke could lip read. Turns out he was lucky. Sasuke could lip read, though not much, and you had to go slow for him to contemplate the sentence completely. Equals look, moron. I don't like this either, but if you want those bells, you're gonna have to work with me here. Equals. Sasuke glared at Naruto for a while later, then finally sighed silently. Equals fine. What's the plan? Equals. Naruto nodded back to him, indicating he too accepts this short truce between them, and laid out his plan of attack. Within the visible clearing, Kakashi had gone into high alert. With both Naruto and Sasuke working together, it would be a lot tougher to beat them both at the same time. He was wondering whether he should use his Sharingan when Sakura finally woke up. Huh? Where am I? Remembering, Sakura immediately sat up. Where's Sasuke? She yelled. That was the exact moment that Naruto and Sasuke rushed out of their hiding places and attacked Kakashi. Several Narutos, Kage Bunshins, shadow replications, rushed towards Kakashi from the front. After a few blocks and blows, only one Naruto remained, the real Naruto. While Kakashi was concentrating hard against Naruto, he reacted too slowly when Sasuke appeared by his side, swiping Kakashi off his feet when he swung his legs in a half-circle while crouching and stretched his hand out to grab the bells. Kakashi saw this last move, jumped up and hit both Naruto and Sasuke in the face with both his legs. Both Naruto and Sasuke flew backwards due to the impact. When Kakashi finally landed from his jump, Sasuke was holding both bells triumphantly in his hand. After several seconds of stunted silence, Sakura screamed out her joy, running towards the slightly injured Sasuke, and hugged him so tightly that he couldn't breathe. She kept on reiterating the same sentence. Sasuke is so cool. Sasuke is so great. Sasuke is the greatest. Kakashi recovered from his shock, lifting one hand behind his head and scratched it sheepishly. Well, I guess both Sasuke and Naruto have passed this test then. Sakura froze on those words, immediately letting go of an almost unconscious Sasuke, rushed at Kakashi and screamed out to him in protest. Does that mean I failed? No, I can't fail. Please give me another chance. Kakashi-sensei. Please see. Both Kakashi and Naruto winced at her high-pitched voice. No, came Sasuke's soft but determined answer. You are too weak to become a useful shinobi. You should quit while you're ahead, Sakura. Sakura almost started crying as she imagined her days without Sasuke's constant companion. That is, until Kakashi interrupted. You're wrong, Sasuke. Do you know why I said both you and Naruto passed? Because we were the ones who got the bell, answered Sasuke simply. Kakashi shook his head and was about to answer, but Naruto interrupted him. Sakura can have the second bell if she wants. While the other three looked back at him in question, Naruto answered, I'm not interested in the bells. Smirking at Kakashi, he continued, I just wanted to piss Kakashi off. That's all. Kakashi sighed and shook his head in resignation as Sakura jumped up with joy. Loosing his patient, he shouted, Shut up, all of you. Silence ensured. Kakashi then explained that the whole purpose of this exercise wasn't set up to test their individual strengths and weaknesses. It was to test their teamwork. With a team of 3 genins, they should be able to help each other gather the bells from a jounin. The test was set up this way to see who would be willing to work with their partners to accomplish a difficult task. He referred to what he said before, stating that why both Naruto and Sasuke had passed was because they worked together as a team. After that speech, Kakashi then told them their individual weaknesses. Sasuke was overconfident of his abilities, too arrogant to analyze the situation properly, and too self-righteous to work with another. Sakura was too obsessed with just following Sasuke and ignoring her other teammate to the point that she was completely useless during a mission. Naruto's weakness was being difficult to motivate at all in completing even a simple task and reacts too emotionally when push comes to shove. Overall, they had plenty of weaknesses to overcome within their genin days. After a long pause, Kakashi smiled and confirmed that even though they need to work on their teamwork, this Team 7, he passed them. Sakura was jumping for joy again. Sasuke was smirking while Naruto was silently contemplating Kakashi's words. Equals 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 equals. After that, Naruto walked silently back towards the hero's memorial. After a long while, his official guardian and sensei, Jiraiya, suddenly visited him. So, how was it? Your team, that is. I'm paired with Uchiha Sasuke and Haruno Sakura. Heh, Uchiha. Huh, damn. Must be a spoilt genius brat then, right? Naruto lowered his head. I guess. The silence stretched for a while longer until Naruto asked his guardian a question. Naruto, why did you bring me back now? Because I thought it was high time for you to come back. Why? Naruto insisted. Jiraiya signed. This is the place where you were born, the place where your father and mother called home, and as such it should be your home too. I know you don't really have much good memory about this place, but it's really a wonderful place to call home, you know? Naruto turned around and looked at Jiraiya with sad eyes. How can I call it home if I don't feel welcomed here? Jiraiya looked straight back at him without batting an eye. Because soon enough, you will learn what is precious in the Konoha that you won't find anywhere else. Smiling at Naruto's confused expression, Jiraiya answered again, "Haven't you already found someone important here?" After a few minutes of thought, Naruto nodded as he remembered Iruka. Jiraiya asked again, "Would you fight to protect this important person?" Naruto nodded again without resistance. "Then you would become even stronger." Naruto looked confused again. Jiraiya raised his eyes to the names on the memorial. "Remember, Naruto, true strength comes only to those whom are trying to protect their loved ones. When you have someone to protect, you will understand what I mean." Naruto nodded, though uneasily, turned to look at the memorial. "Just like father did." Jiraiya nodded in silence. He protected all his loved ones in Konoha. The Yondaime was a truly strong person. Chapter 2. After several weeks of these tedious missions, all three of the genins in Team 7 have become pretty restless. Soon, Naruto had finally had enough and his anger and frustration burst. "When I signed up to become a ninja, I did not think I would spend my time babysitting, doing gardening, painting walls, taking dogs out for walks, or finding missing animals." Though said coldly, his voice hid the undertone of rage. Hokage sighed and was about to tell him it couldn't be helped, but he was interrupted by Naruto again. "Why can't we have at least one C-rank mission? It's a lot more entertaining than all these D ranks." Sighing again, Hokage asked the other two team members if they agreed with Naruto. Sasuke raised his hand in agreement almost immediately, and Sakura also raised her hand once she saw Sasuke doing the same. "Why don't you just give them a C-rank mission if it'll shut them up for a bit?" A nasal voice called out from the doorway. Naruto's eyebrow twitched. He quickly turned around, raising a finger and directed it straight at his guardian, shouting in anger, "And where have you been these 3 weeks?" "I was busy," Jiraiya replied with a shrug. "Yeah, right. Probably peeking into the female public baths again," Naruto retorted hotly, folding his arms together and glaring at his guardian. "If you must know, I was gathering information for my next book," Jiraiya tried to explain. "Meaning you were peeking into the female public baths? Geez, don't you ever grow up? Pervert Sannin." Naruto's eyes continued to twitch in irritation as he snorted in disgust. "Stop calling me a pervert, you shrimp," Jiraiya scolded, starting to get really annoyed at the blonde boy. "Pervert, pervert, pervert, open pervert." With both hands in front of his mouth, Naruto yelled at the top of his lungs. "Why, you ungrateful little..." Jiraiya threatened with narrowed eyes as he lunged towards the blonde boy. Before Jiraiya could reach him, Naruto had performed a seal, the Oroike no Jutsu seal, Sexy no Jutsu. Immediately, Jiraiya forgot about his previous arguments as he started drooling over the sexy, naked Naruto. Also at this time, several people in the same room spurted a large amount of blood flowing from their noses, some even rendered unconscious. These people included Kakashi, who was on the ground hyperventilating, the third Hokage, who had fallen over his chair and continued to twitch while lying on the floor, Iruka, who was currently sticking a lot of tissues up his nose to stop the blood flow, and even Sasuke, who had a hand covering his nose and mouth, though a little trickle of blood can be seen, and he was currently standing with his back to Naruto. Seeing that, Sakura immediately launched herself at Naruto and screamed at him until he returned to his normal form. "Geez, I didn't think Konoha had so many perverts," Naruto added while smirking. "Cough, cough, finit. I'll give you to see Rand Mizian," replied the Hokage, still reeling from blood loss. After detailing the protection mission, he introduced their client, a Mr. Tazuna. Afterwards, they set off on their first C-rank mission. Equals 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 equals. The group set out, traveling on the way with few complaints. Sakura became curious and asked if the Wave Country had a ninja academy of their own. Kakashi was just about to answer when Naruto interrupted them and started explaining the whole situation with the 5 Kages and the 5 most powerful countries in the world currently. Sakura was surprised that Naruto knew something in which she did not, and so she asked him, "How did you know all that?" Naruto simply replied that he has been there before. While Naruto was explaining about the 5 great shinobi countries, Kakashi noticed a suspicious puddle of water on the ground. Once they walked past it, 2 people emerged from the puddle and started attacking the group. Kakashi was visually seen being caught in their deadly chain and then ripped apart by it. The 3 Genins and Tazuna-san all fell into shock. Sakura screamed in fear as the 2 enemies raced towards Naruto to kill him. They've just surrounded Naruto when Sasuke came to the rescue. He struck their combined chain onto a nearby tree with a shuriken and kunai, and then managed to hit them both in the face using his feet. The 2 opponents released the chain from their holder and started running away towards different targets. One aimed at the paralyzed Naruto and the other ran towards Tazuna. Sasuke made a split-second decision, choosing to keep Sakura and their client safe and leaving Naruto on his own. However, just when the enemy reached Naruto, Naruto disappeared into a cloud of smoke. He was a Bunshin. Immediately after the Bunshin disappeared, the real Naruto reappeared behind the opponent that went to attack him. Naruto grabbed onto his opponent's hand, slamming him down onto the ground and twisted said arm painfully until it almost broke at the elbow, rendering the man immobile. Kakashi had also reappeared, unharmed, to take out the other opponent. Even though Kakashi had planned on tying the 2 of them up and then asking Tazuna-san what was going on, Naruto did not have the patience to wait. He twisted the arm of his captive brutally, causing the man to scream in pain. "Who is your boss? What is your objective?" Naruto asked coldly without mercy. Wanting to remain silent, the man screamed again as Naruto twisted his arm even more. "Talk, god damn it, or less you will know the meaning of pain." Naruto shouted his threats. "Stop it. You're gonna break his arm," yelled the other man, frantic at watching his brother in so much pain. "Naruto, stop. They have already been beaten. We don't need to torture them," ordered Kakashi in a calm but slightly tense tone of voice. "Like hell I don't," Naruto yelled at Kakashi as his eyes started to gleam red while Kyuubi's chakra started leaking out. He then spoke to his captive with a softer but deadly serious tone of voice, reflecting his current cruel desires. "Talk, or you will wish that I had killed you now rather than later. I am a master of pain, and I know over 200 ways to make a man cry in agony." "Stop! Stop! I'll talk. Please stop." The man yielded. Naruto loosens his grip on the arm he held slightly, as well as the 3 painful pressure points in which his other hand had been pressing on the man's neck recently. Our boss is the devil of the mist. We were hired to take out that old man," indicating Tazuna. "That's all. We were only following orders. That's all there is. Please let us go," the man pleaded rapidly. "Paid by who?" The icy voice of Naruto's sent shivers down the man's spine. "Naruto, stop it. If you continue, you're just as bad as the 2 of them," Kakashi commanded, seriously considering the option of physically stopping his student. Naruto glared right back at him with blood-red eyes and slitted pupils. The features of his eyes shocked all 4 of the group members, and Kakashi started to sweat a little. If the seal is broken now, then there is no way to stop him, he thought. Naruto turned away, closing his eyes for a moment. He took a deep breath and released it. His eyes reopened again to reveal their normal sky blue shade. He released the arm of the opponent he was holding, but didn't release the hold he had on the man's neck. The free hand is raised slightly, forming a 2-finger pointing seal. "Hack Juni Tenketsus Yanshu," yelled Naruto, and he quickly pushed 12 points on his opponents back in seemingly random order. After that, he completely releases his captive, turned and started walking towards the other enemy, still held incarcerated by Kakashi. Naruto then did the same thing with the second enemy. Kakashi was confused over what Naruto did to the 2 of them. The previous man, having been just released, thought that he could take his chance at revenge. He launched himself at Naruto, aiming to strike his back. Both Sakura and Sasuke stood ready this time, awaiting the blow, but it never came. They were again shocked when the man tried to do certain seals, and suddenly ended up screaming on the floor halfway through making the seals. His body continued to shudder in pain, while the chakra he had summoned for the seal slowly dissipated, leaving a burning sensation throughout his body. "What did you do to him and me?" yelled the other man in fright, having watched his brother shake in agony. Naruto answered calmly, 12 of your most precious opening points on the chakra inner coil system have been rendered useless for life. If you try to use any chakra at all, it will burn your inner coils as well as your surrounding organs. I suggest you never try to use chakra again unless you wish to die." Shaking out of his reverie, Kakashi released his prisoner also, and the group slowly but surely left on their journey again. Not wanting to make Naruto even more angry, Kakashi decided not to press Naruto for the reasons why he acted the way he did against the two missed Nins. After Tazuna-san had explained the real situation to Kakashi and the kids, they all decided to continue on with the mission, though Naruto had become even more quiet and sullen than usual. None of the others tried to talk to him, for they all knew that the only question to come out of their mouths would be to ask him about that new technique he had used against the demon brothers. This particular question, however, they were certain he wouldn't answer anyway. The group continued on their journey in silence, passing through the rivers and seas without incident, even admiring the new, yet unfinished bridge with awe in silence. Finally, they reached the shores of the wave country. The group walked for a while. Suddenly, Naruto stops in his tracks and threw a kunai into the surrounding bushes. Sakura and Tazuna gasped in fright, waiting for the next attack, but the rest of boys just stood still. For a while, nothing moved. Sakura breathed in a sigh of relief. "Naruto, could you stop acting cool for a second?" she yelled. "Stop trying to scare us to death." Tazuna agreed and glared at the non-moving boy. However, Naruto ignored them both. Naruto had narrowed his eyes while Kakashi went to investigate what he had hit. It was a snow rabbit. Sakura took one look at the freaked-out rabbit and felt sorry for it. She settled in to glare at Naruto. "Naruto, look what you did. You scared the life out of it. You moron." Naruto continued to ignore Sakura and shifted his gaze to a position inside a nearby tree. Suddenly, a shifting of wind was felt by Naruto instead of being heard. "Everyone, duck!" shouted Kakashi. Sasuke ducked instinctively to his instruction. Naruto had to push Sakura and Tazuna-san out of the way while he too ducked under the spinning weapon. Once the massive spinning sword flew by their heads, the group looked up in surprise. A man, whose face was wrapped up in bandages, stood on a massive sword-like object embedded in a tree a few meters up from the ground. Naruto silently analyzed the man's ability and ignored the conversation between Kakashi and Zabuza. He already knew that Kakashi was the renowned copycat Kakashi, so it was no surprise about the Sharingan, and it didn't interest him anyway. Missing Nin. Specialty silent killings within the mist. Overconfident in his own abilities. Best way to defeat him is to trick him and force his hand. Once confused, he'll be easy picking. Naruto resigned himself to sit outside of this battle. He didn't really want to get so involved in a fight against a Jounin anyway. While a thick, heavy cloud of mist surrounded the group from Zabuza's Kirigakure no Jutsu, hidden mist technique, Naruto had closed his eyes and concentrated. When he reopened his eyes, they had become a different shade of violet, enhancing his vision to be able to see through the thick mist. Mixing his original blue chakra and Ninetales' red chakra to create something like an intermediate chakra with the violet color. Kakashi had tried to calm his students down by telling them he will ensure their safety, But these comforting thoughts were immediately cut off in Naruto's mind as he suddenly pushed the other members of the team away and parried Zabuza's big sword with his own small kunai. Being pushed back by the heavy weight of the big sword, Naruto was relieved that Kakashi had managed to grab onto Zabuza, rendering him immobile, and giving Naruto the time to drag Tazuna away from the fighting. After a few seconds of watching water clones beat water clones, Naruto was slightly disappointed when Kakashi fell easily into Zabuza's water prison trap. He frowned as the new Zabuza water clone disappeared from sight and reappeared instantly in front of him. He easily blocked the water clone's weak kick with one arm and slammed his other hand's palm into the center of the water clone. Using the Juken style of fighting, he pushed chakra out of that open palm, which resulted in blasting the clone back into water molecules. From the wide-eyed expression on the real Zabuza's face, he seemed surprised that a supposedly weak genin was able to beat his water clone. What did he expect? The water clones are 10 times weaker than the original. And Naruto, if he really wanted to, could very well rival the Miss Jounin in strength. Zabuza narrowed his eyes in annoyance and started ranting about his past being the devil and how he had killed all his classmates. Naruto ignored the talk and concentrated on thinking up a plan to free Kakashi. He still didn't want to use his full power against the Miss Jounin, so he'll find a way to leave the rest of the fight to his supposed teacher. Coming to a decision, Naruto interrupted Zabuza's continual monologue. Enough with the speeches. Are we gonna fight or not? Naruto rolled his eyes at Zabuza's resulting angry expression. Being unable to move from his position holding Kakashi in a prison, Zabuza had made several more water clones, Mizu Bunshins, to fight against Naruto. Naruto rolled his eyes again at Zabuza's dangerous underestimation of his abilities. When Zabuza's clones started running towards him, Naruto performed his favorite seal, Taiyu Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, multiple shadow replication technique. At once, there appeared over 30 Naruto clones clashing against the 10 Zabuza clones. Simply put, the Zabuza clones became overwhelmed and the Naruto clones immediately tried to close in on the real Zabuza. Having seen how his clones were nothing compared to Kakashi's brat of a student, Zabuza decided to try something different. He called upon a tidal wave of water to crush all of Naruto's clones at once. When the water finally subsided, Naruto surprised Zabuza once again when a wind shuriken, Kaze Shuriken, flew past the air at high speeds, aiming straight at Zabuza. Calmly, Zabuza stretched his free hand out and grabbed onto the massive shuriken before it came to close. Thinking that was all the kid had up his sleeve, Zabuza was taken back again when another shuriken detached itself from underneath the one he was holding and continued to fly towards him. Shadow Shuriken no Jutsu. Kasama! Zabuza mentally swore and jumped up quickly, just in the nick of time to avoid the shuriken cutting off his legs. Once again to his shock, the shadow shuriken disappeared into a cloud of smoke revealing the hidden Naruto, whom immediately threw a kunai in Zabuza's direction. Being cornered and having no choice, Zabuza jumped away to avoid the kunai, but it still managed to get a scratch his face. Furious at the damn annoying brat, Zabuza tried to throw the shuriken currently in his hand back towards Naruto but was stopped by the newly freed Kakashi. Naruto, on the other hand, landed lightly on the water's surface, trying to gain his balance. Watching both Zabuza and Kakashi perform the powerful jutsu, Suryuden no Jutsu, Water Dragon Blast no Jutsu, Naruto decided now would be a very good time to leave the vicinity. He quickly left the water's edge just in time to watch both the water dragons cancel each other out. Seeing the torrents of water coming towards them due to the previous assault, Naruto quickly grabbed onto Sakura and Tazuna, one with each hand, yelled at Sasuke to get out of the way just as he himself jumped away to avoid the impact of the water blast. Kakashi then played a genjutsu trick on Zabuza to confuse him, while he completed the seals for Suetun, Dabakafu no Jutsu, Water Element, Water Explosion no Jutsu. Naruto yelled at the rest of the group to hold on to any big trees as tightly as possible, because the resulting force of water almost knocked all of them off their branches. Finally thinking this battle was over, Naruto calmed down slightly. But the peace was interrupted as flying needles suddenly flew across the cleaning and struck through Zabuza's throat, surprising even Naruto. Damn, I didn't even feel his presence at all. Naruto thought as he narrowed his gaze angrily at the intruder, a young hunter Nin from the mist. After a long pause for introductions, Naruto narrowed his eyes again as the mist hunter Nin picked up the supposedly dead body of Zabuza. If his memories served him right, hunter Nins usually burn the body of their victims immediately. This is suspicious. And just when the boy was about to leave their presence, Naruto snapped back at him. Hey! Aren't hunter Nins usually supposed to burn the body of their victims immediately after death and bring back only the head? The boy stopped moving for just a split second before Kakashi quickly turned around, his eye wide with realization, but it was already too late. The boy had made a few quick hand seals and disappeared with Zabuza's body intact. His voice rang overhead. Until the next time we meet. Kakashi cursed visibly at his own incompetence. But there was nothing else that can be done. Naruto snarled in anger at being tricked. He didn't like being overmatched. Soon after the impromptu battle, the group decided to leave the area. The sooner the better. But things became complicated again when Kakashi fell unconscious due to exhaustion. Kakashi-sensei, are you all right? What happened? Kakashi-sensei. Sakura screamed in panic, frantically shaking Kakashi's unmoving body. Tazuna, too, became a bit pale at the realization that he only had 3 kids to protect him now, if the Jounin was to fall dead. Naruto calmly pressed his fingers against Kakashi's throat, finding his pulse. He's fine, Naruto emphasized, just exhausted from the overuse of his left eye. Sakura sighed in relief, but the relief didn't last long. What will we do now if they attack again? She asked nervously. Sasuke grunted. We'll just have to beat them up. It's as simple as that. Even though he was already very shaken from simply watching the extraordinary fight between the two Jounins, but he didn't want to look bad compared to Naruto. Sasuke was raging inside at how calm and collected Naruto had reacted to the whole thing, and he himself had almost ran away as Kakashi had instructed them to do. If he couldn't even withstand watching these types of fights, then he would never be able to even participate, let alone defeat his brother. No, they won't be coming back so soon anyway, Naruto replied calmly as he stood up and looked at his other 2 teammates. We have to carry Kakashi back to the village. They looked back at him in silence, waiting. Naruto sighed again. What good are teammates if they don't help each other? He thought as he performed his favorite seal for the 2nd time that day. The Taiyukage Bunshin clones easily lifted Kakashi's unconscious body and started walking again. Naruto began leading the group when he was interrupted by an aggravated Sasuke. Who made you leader? If I remember correctly, you're only an outcast. Sasuke sneered cruelly. He had to find some way of getting rid of his frustration, and it seems easiest to aim the anger at Naruto. Naruto turned around to glare at Sasuke icily. What do you suggest, then? Oh great and powerful Uchiha-san. Sasuke immediately became extremely angry. Nobody, an Obadi insults the Uchiha name is my presence. Sakura, seeing the tension building between the boys, decided to intervene. Sasuke-kun, you know Naruto doesn't mean that. And Naruto apologies to Sasuke-kun immediately. You have no right to talk like that to Sasuke-kun. Sakura shouted at the blonde boy, hoping he would step down from the challenge. But to her surprise, Naruto only turned his icy gaze back at her. You have no right to call yourself a shinobi. Sakura blinked in shock at his announcement and was about to rebuff when he interrupted again. You have been nothing but a burden on your teacher and classmates. You have done nothing to earn the title of shinobi. Until you earn the right to bear that title, you are nothing, Haruno-san. Nothing but a waste of space and time. With that said, Naruto quickly turned around and stormed away with his clones and Kakashi trailing behind him. Sakura stood completely still as Naruto's harsh words slammed into her reality. Nothing but a waste of space and time. Sakura felt herself falling into depression after she realized that Naruto was right. His words struck true. What have I ever done for the good of the team? Nothing. She was snapped out of her musings when Tazuna-san suggested that they all follow Naruto's example and leave, which they did. However, the same thoughts went through both Sasuke and Sakura's minds at the exact moment while they continued traveling to Tazuna-san's home in the Wave Country. I have to become stronger. Equals 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 equals. Finally, they've reached the relative safety of Tazuna-san's own home. There, they met Tsunami, Tazuna-san's daughter, and had Kakashi laid down to rest. However, the tension was still high in the air, and everyone realized that even though they've won one battle, they haven't won the war. They all understood that Zabuza and his assistant, the Mist Boy, were still out there, ready to kill them at any time. And with Kakashi out of battle for some time due to his exhausted body, everyone was worried about their future. Kakashi sighed loudly to get his students' attention. It had been a few minutes since his awakening. Knowing he couldn't fight for another week at the minimum, Kakashi understood that he will need the kids to do some of the upcoming battle for him. Even though he was very reluctant to do so, but sometimes you have to do things you don't like. However, he was also very aware that Sasuke and Sakura were not yet ready for these types of demanding battles without at least some intensive training. That idea basically left everything on Naruto's shoulders. Kakashi does not know exactly how strong Naruto really is, but if he had to harbor a guess, Naruto was probably as strong as a Jounin level now. So decision made, the hard part was to actually convince Naruto Kakashi's side again. This is going to be hard. Naruto, Kakashi called. What? Snapped the irritated Naruto sitting by the window. Can you do me a big favor? Kakashi asked reluctantly. Depends on what this favor entails. Kakashi mentally rolled his eyes. Motivating Naruto to do anything is like trying to push a herd of elephants away from their favorite water source. Very difficult. I need you to train Sasuke and Sakura for me. That comment earned him 3 full death glares. Naruto glared at Kakashi, as if he would ever want to train these pathetic kids. Sasuke glared at Kakashi. He refuses to need this upstart dope's help in training him. Not to mention he'd rather die than ask for his help anyway. Sakura glared at Kakashi. Their teamwork was already strained enough as it is with an unmotivated Naruto and a slightly selfish Sasuke. To ask Naruto to teach them would be like asking a bird to teach a frog how to fly. It just wasn't probable. But being the logical kid she is, Sakura tried to curb the anger in the room away with some reasoning. But sensei, what is a little training going to do? Our enemy is a ninja you struggled against even with the Sharingan. One, she persuaded. Sakura, when I was in trouble, it was you guys who came to my rescue and protected Tazuna-san from harm. I have great expectations for all 3 of you. You all have such high potential. Not to mention, I believe that Naruto here, indicating Naruto with his eyes, and Naruto scoffed at the attempt to pinpoint him, is just as capable of fighting Zabuza if he really wanted to. Kakashi said evenly. The rest of the house's inhabitants instantly shifted their gaze on the seemingly shortest kid in the lot, but Naruto turned away from their attention and ignored them. Kakashi sighed and tried again. Naruto, you know you're the only one that can teach them right now. There isn't much I can do until I've recovered, and unless you want your own teammates to die, please just teach them some basics so that they could defend themselves. And for the final motivational push, your father would have wanted you to do this, Kakashi added lightly. Naruto swiveled around immediately and glared at Kakashi full force. His voice was icy cold with rage. That's blackmail and manipulation, Kakashi. Kakashi nodded in reply but continued with his reasoning. Yes, it is called manipulation, but it is also the truth. He looked at Naruto evenly, trying to will the child into understanding how important this task actually was. Soon enough, however, Naruto turned around again, showing his tense back as he contemplated whether he should agree or not. A long silence ensued after that, until Naruto broke it with his final statement on this matter. Fine. Meet me at the woods south of here at 5 in the morning. Naruto was about to get up and leave the room when he was interrupted by another voice. No amount of training will help you guys. You're all going to die. There's no way you can win against Gatu. 2. A whining voice complained from the sidelines. These statements came from a small child, no older than 8 or so. He was later introduced as Inari, Tezuna's grandson and Tsunami's son. Naruto gazed at the boy evenly, then turned around again and proceeded to leave the house. Just before he left, though, he told the child, "Only a coward gives up hope when there is still a chance to win." And he left. Equals 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 equals. Naruto needed some peace and quiet while he thought about what to do tomorrow, so he entered the woodland area south of the house. But his musings were interrupted. You know, Inari doesn't really mean what he said. I'm apologizing on his behalf. You shouldn't be out here, old man. It's not safe. Naruto didn't turn around, but his voice addressed the old bridge builder, which was enough for now. I know, but you'll protect me anyway, right? So there isn't any threat. And anyway, if I feel threatened in my very own home, then there really is no place safer, right? Tezuna-san said in amusement, but in a very hollow and cynical sense. I guess Naruto reluctantly replied back. Hey, I don't mean to intrude or anything, but I'd just like to know you a little more, you know? Get to become friends and stuff. The old man continued, shifting nervously. So, what do you say to some sake and stuff, huh? Naruto smiled slightly, though he still didn't turn around. I'm not old enough to drink, old man, he answered, slightly amused. Tezuna chuckled. Heh, I forgot that you guys are only 12. Any guess? I'll have to save up the sake for another 8 years at the very least. Hn. 3. Thanks, Naruto answered quietly, and finally, decided to turn around and greet his guest properly. Once turned, Tezuna was surprised at the slight smile that graced Naruto's face. In the few days that he had traveled with the young lad, he had never seen Naruto smile. He looked, well, younger when he wasn't scowling at someone or just generally annoyed. The Naruto presented to him right now showed him how truly young he must really be. Still a child and yet so powerful. I wonder what he had been through to become the way he is now. Tezuna thought to himself. Tezuna was about to start another conversation when Naruto beat him to the punch. You don't have to worry about me being out here alone. I'm used to it already. Tonight, I'm going to be standing guard around the house and in the surrounding bushlands to make sure no assassins come this way. Don't worry about me. I've done this hundreds of times in the past, so it's really not that difficult for me. I'll be back for breakfast tomorrow and I'll pick you up and protect you on the bridge work as well. Wow. Seems the kid has got everything figured out already. But I still feel sorry that everything has been dumped on his shoulders so suddenly. It ain't fair for a kid like him to not smile often. As Tezuna thought over what Naruto had just said, he came to a conclusion. Done this hundreds of times before? How the kid gets himself into these types of situations. Doesn't seem like his teammates are anywhere near his level of expertise, so they couldn't have been together long. Damn, I'm starting to feel really sorry for the kid. As if reading his mind, Naruto interrupted his thoughts again. What happened in the past already happened, and there is nothing we can do to change it, so just let it go. I've got a busy day tomorrow, so if it wouldn't be too rude to ask, could you please return to the premises, sir? Though sounding like a command, the smirk on Naruto's face indicated his amusement and emphasized the fact that he was being sarcastic. Tezuna gave in, sighed and nodded, then left the boy alone in the woods. Behind him, Naruto lost his smile. Why do I always push people away? Am I so afraid of being hurt again that I'd rather live alone and without human contact at all? He thought to himself depressingly. I don't know. Chapter 3. Early the next morning, both Sakura and Sasuke arrived at the woodland area that Naruto had instructed them to go to yesterday, to receive their supposed training. It had taken Kakashi a whole night of persuading, but in the end, they had finally agreed that there really was no choice in the matter. If they had to fight against Zabuza and his apprentice again, they would need to become stronger fast. and the quickest way currently was to learn from Naruto. Both of the genins were a bit nervous about the prospect to start off with, but they were also determined to get stronger. Finding Naruto leaning against a tree waiting for them, Sakura and Sasuke stood in rigid stances, apprehensive about what Naruto would be teaching them. Naruto raised his eyebrows and looked at his pupils steadily, analyzing their reactions. After a while, he sighed and rubbed the back of his head with a look of irritation on his face. He really didn't want to do this, but he didn't want them to die either. Standing up straighter, Naruto gazed at both Sasuke's slightly annoyed expression and Sakura's nervous one. For today, we will be doing the tree climbing exercise. Naruto lectured as if he was talking to some 5-year-olds. Sasuke lifted a delicate eyebrow in reaction. You're kidding, right? Climbing trees? He looked at Naruto as if he expected Naruto to grow a second head. Yes, Sasuke, Naruto hissed between clenched teeth. He really didn't want to put up with Sasuke's attitude problem at the ungodly hour of 5 in the morning. I did say tree climbing, but this exercise is slightly different from what you are thinking about. Sakura blinked in confusion and asked, then what kind of? Trying to find a better term but failed. Tree climbing is it? Climbing trees without the use of hands, Naruto said and then started to demonstrate. Action speaks louder than words anyway, so action it is. Doing a simple hand seal, Naruto concentrated, pushing the right amount of chakra onto the bottom of his feet. He then started walking up a tree nonchalantly as if he was strolling through a park. Sasuke's eyes widened slightly at the unnatural display and Sakura's mouth hanged open. If they think this was hard, try doing this on a cliff edge. Naruto silently complained, since that was exactly what he had to do when he was training with Jiraiya. That sadistic bastard. He was, at the time, thrown off a cliff, just for the fun of it. Naruto really hated cliffs. His first encounter with them happened when he had to perform the Kuchiyose no Jutsu and have Gamabunta jump out of the cliff to save his life. Since then, he'd had nothing but bad experiences when dealing with cliffs. With this climbing exercise, he was, once again, thrown off a cliff edge and was expected to climb his way out using only his feet. That is, if he didn't die when he reached the ground in the first place. That bastard of a teacher. But I did pay him back pretty good. Naruto smirked silently. Jiraiya's hair had stayed a permanent pink color for months later. Back to the present. Naruto finished his demonstration by ending up standing upside down from a thick branch protruding from the tree. This is how you climb a tree without hands. Naruto waited for his stunned students to recover before he continued. Now it's your turn. Gather chakra around the bottom of your feet and climb a tree. Wait a minute. How does learning how to climb trees supposed to help us become stronger? Sakura asked. Though nervous of Naruto's reactions, she really did want some answers and was willing to get scolded for that. She had always been an inquiring child, always curious as to how things worked and why. So to her, it felt very much like the academy days again, where she would raise her hand and hope the teacher answered her question instead of telling her to be quiet. However, Naruto was not one of those patient teachers working in the academy. He sighed again. Why must they be so bothersome? I'm assuming that both of you know how to channel chakra, right? At their confused nods, he continued. This exercise is to teach you how to control your chakra properly, without wasting it. It forces you to bring out the exact amount of chakra to the exact position on your body, which in turns help build up your stamina so that you can continue fighting for a lot longer. And also, theoretically, if you can learn this precise control, you should be able to master any jutsu. Seeing that they had nothing else to add, Naruto picked up 2 kunais from his hidden pouch and threw them to the ground, directly in front of Sasuke and Sakura. Use those kunais to mark how high you can make it up a tree before you are no longer able to control yourself. This is an exercise that is learnt through trial and error, so I expect the 2 of you to help each other out when you need to. That's all. Firstly, show me how much control you already have. Both Sakura and Sasuke did exactly as they were told. They've already had discussions with one another beforehand about this, and agreed that they were willing to give Naruto the benefit of the doubt for now, because they really didn't know exactly how difficult the training session actually was. Sasuke concentrated on putting the correct amount of chakra on his feet. He ran towards one tree, jumped off the ground, took 3 steps up said tree, but immediately felt his feet cracking against the tree's bark. Marking his progress, Sasuke then jumped down safely. Damn, this is harder than it looks. Sasuke cursed under his breath. Hey, this is actually pretty easy. Both boys looked towards Sakura in shock. She had figured it out almost immediately. The same thought went through both boys' mind. Damn, it took me a full week to be able to reach the top, complained Naruto, slightly jealous at Sakura's natural ability to control her chakra well. Then again, she didn't have a demon sealed inside of her. Naruto thought in excuse. It seems like Sakura is the first one able to control chakra precisely. This comment was aimed directly at Sasuke's pride. It deserves to be wounded a bit, if only to push him to his limits. Naruto thought to himself. Alright, continue until you are completely worn out. I want to see how long your stamina can last. After only 10 minutes of watching Sakura go up and down a tree, she collapsed in exhaustion. Damn, her body's chakra amount is so small it's practically useless, Naruto thought disappointingly. Then he looked towards Sasuke's progress. Though not as good as Sakura's handling of chakra, he certainly has a lot of more chakra reserves to spare. Damn, I'm gonna have to leave them to train alone and do my guard duty over Tazuna soon. Naruto thought, looking at the rising sun. Sakura, Naruto called as he jumps down from his upside-down perch, which he had never really left since his demonstration. Sakura looked up at him in surprise, wondering what he wanted. After Naruto lands lightly on the ground, he stood straight up and looked over Sakura's exhausted body with a critical eye. No, this will most definitely not do. Sakura, your control over chakra is almost perfect. But your greatest weakness lies in your limited chakra reserve. You need to build up a lot more stamina if you wish to fully participate in any battle, he stated firmly. Sakura nodded in silent reply. She knew that she was the weakest in the group, but didn't know how else to change that fact. She just didn't have enough chakra to do practically anything other than the basic stuff you learn in the academy. How can I build up my chakra reserves then? Naruto-kun. Even Sakura had to admit that the training wasn't as bad as she'd feared, and being able to do something useful for once really did help her self-confidence. She really does want to help the others in battle, and to do that she had to become stronger. Naruto sighed, shaking his head a bit, but decided to tell her the truth. It requires intensive taijutsu training. Once you build up enough physical stamina, your spiritual stamina will also increase automatically. But I won't lie to you, Sakura. To do that in such a small amount of time will require seriously intensive physical exercises. Sakura shivered a bit at the explanation. Am I ready for that? Don't know. But looking back at Naruto's determined eyes, Sakura finally made a decision. I won't be left behind. Sasuke-kun will master how he controls chakra soon, and then I'll be the only one that can't participate in any battles. I don't want that. I need to become stronger. With that mental preparation, Sakura nodded in acceptance. I understand, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Naruto nodded back in satisfaction and smiled gently at her, proud of her dedication and courage. He then turned around to address Sasuke and his chakra exercise, leaving Sakura to get some more rest before he puts her through intensive training. Unbeknownst to him, when he had turned, Sakura's eyes had widened in surprise. That was the first time he had ever smiled in her presence, in the entire time that she had known him as a teammate. He looks younger. When he finally smiles, Sakura thought, though nowhere as sexy as Sasuke-kun's smile, if he ever did smile naturally and not that smirk. Naruto's smile was genuine. It wasn't faked, and it was most definitely not forced. Sakura made a silent promise to herself then. She wants to improve the relationship between the members of Team 7 so that they will never feel so isolated again, especially Naruto. She really wanted all three of them to work as a team. Sasuke, called Naruto. Sasuke looked up at Naruto from his resting on the ground. He was currently breathing heavily with slight exhaustion. He had reached halfway up the tree, though he was still disappointed that Sakura could be better than him in that respect. Naruto decided to give him some tips. He may not like Sasuke Uchiha very much, but he didn't want the kid to die just because of his own incompetence. It would be a waste for the sole survivor of the Uchiha tragedy to die in such a dishonorable way. Listen, Sasuke. Chakra uses spiritual energy as well as physical energy, so you can't get too excited. To gather chakra on your feet, you have to relax and focus on the tree. Don't give in to your frustrations or anger. If you do, you will never improve. I know that, snapped and irritated Sasuke. He did know all that, but it was still difficult for him to concentrate. With the added pressure knowing that Sakura had already reached the top and Naruto was way out of his league, Sasuke was starting to feel slightly inferior to his two teammates, and this thought was not helping his mood. Naruto silently seethed. I'm trying to help you, you bastard prick. Taking a deep breath, Naruto forcefully calmed himself down enough to continue with his tip. Even without Sasuke's outwardly acceptance, he still had to help the kid because he had already agreed to it. And by God, Naruto Uzumaki does not go back on his words. Your biggest problem, Sasuke, is your superiority complex. Can't you just accept that people are different? You cannot compare people and state that one is stronger than another simply because they each have their own strengths and weaknesses. What gives a man true strength is his will to face a seemingly impossible conflict and deal with it. Using anger and hate to fuel your power will bring you nothing but suffering. And believe me, I know that pain very well. If you give in to your darkness, you will become nothing but a murdering monster. You won't even be human, Naruto exclaimed, exasperated with the infuriating boy. Sasuke glared at Naruto full force. His anger wasn't just due to the fact that Naruto had insulted him directly and without pause, it was also because Naruto had hit a little bit too close to home with his words. Yes, he had been using hate and anger to fuel his ambition to kill his brother. But who gave Naruto the right to tell him what to do with his life? How dare Naruto tell him what he was doing is wrong? But with every word that escaped Naruto's lips, Sasuke knew they were all true. Deep inside of him, the small child that he once was, shivered in fright as the cruel words bombarded against his thin protective shield. In the present, before Sasuke could snarl back in automatic response, Sakura butted in, trying to calm the storm before it explodes. Guys, stop it. We're supposed to work as a team here. A team. That means that we help each other, not try to kill each other. Please stop arguing. Both Naruto and Sasuke had stopped talking when Sakura butted into the conversation, but they were still standing rigidly, and the tension in the air was still high. Sighing, Sakura understood that it was up to her to keep her team together. No matter what it takes, she won't let them be isolated again. Sasuke-kun, please just listen to Naruto for once. Just because I can control my own chakra slightly better than you doesn't mean anything. It might be because I have so little chakra to control in the first place, and I don't have any special bloodline abilities either. So there really isn't any comparison at all. Turning to Naruto, Sakura continued her reasoning. And Naruto-kun, can you please be a little bit more patient with us? We're not like you. We don't know all these things and are just starting to grasp the concepts of them. I know that we don't have time, but we are doing the best we can. Sakura explained softly. A long silence ensures, but Naruto finally decided to break the ice. I apologize, Sakura-san, Sasuke-kun. I'm not used to traveling with a group. And to rebuff your suggestion, Sakura, I too took a very long time to master all these things, so I know what you guys are going through. However, since I am new at this teaching, cursing Kakashi mentally, I'll try to be a bit more lenient, but I also expect you two to give it your all. Now it was both Naruto and Sakura's turn in waiting for Sasuke's reply. It took a while, but Sasuke finally beat his own stubbornness into submission and stated a short, "Sorry, I'll try harder." Naruto sighed, knowing that Sasuke won't be changing his attitude and way of life anytime soon. Oh well, at least we're not at each other's necks anymore. Looking up at the sun, Naruto realized that a lot of time had flown by. Almost an hour had passed since the beginning of the training, and he still had to get back to guard over Tazuna. Giving Sasuke an even look, Naruto surrendered. Fine, Sasuke. Return to what you were doing before. And when you are able to go up and down the trees easily for close to 1 full hour without stressing, I'll start teaching you jutsus and stuff. Both Sasuke's eyes widened in surprise. Naruto is going to teach me jutsus. Naruto turned around then and left Sasuke to his own exercises. He walked towards Sakura, whom had just recovered from her previous exhaustion. Okay, now what to do with Sakura? A light bulb went up in Naruto's head and he immediately changed direction, walking towards his backpack, of which he had brought with him the night before into the forest. He took out 2 worn-looking, long, common gray cloths. Sakura, come over here. Sakura did as she was told. Tie these cloths around your fingers and palm like a bandage. Once again, Sakura followed his instructions word for word, but didn't understand the reason behind these actions. Noting Sakura's confusion, Naruto explained, "For today only, I'll give you some simple exercises that will test your physical body and tire you out but won't hurt you much. First, I'll expect you to do at least 100 push-ups by the end of the day. I don't care how many breaks you take as long as that 100 push-ups is reached. And another thing, to improve the power of your punches, I want you to continuously punch this tree," indicating the big tree behind him, "until you leave a dent at least half an inch thick into the tree. The cloths are to protect your knuckles and fingers from bruising too much." Sakura's eyes widened at Naruto's order. 100 push-ups will probably make her completely exhausted, and then she still had to punch a tree? Opening her mouth to complain about the difficulty of the second command, she was cut off as Naruto grinned at her and slammed his open palm onto another tree just next to him. The sudden impact sent slight shockwaves into the ground and plenty of leaves started falling from said tree. When Naruto finally removed his hand, a finely detailed handprint was revealed on the surface of the tree. It had a dent 1 inch deep from the surrounding bark. Both Sakura and Sasuke underwent shock at Naruto's show of power. There was absolutely no chakra involved in that slam. Naruto stood relaxed in front of his pupils as they tried to recover from their surprise. Eventually, he grew tired of their silence. Well, that's it for today. I've got to go protect Tazuna-san while he works on the bridge. The 2 of you stay here and train. You may return to the house for lunch, dinner and snacks if you are too tired. That's all. If you guys have improved sufficiently enough within the week, then I might consider teaching you new stuff. But don't expect to learn them too fast." With that said, he left his teammates in the woodland and left on his mission. Reaching the house, he made a small greeting to Tazuna, Tsunami, and Kakashi, ignoring the irritable brat sitting by the table. He had his late breakfast and was off with Tazuna-san to work. Equals 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 equals. Standing guard all day was incredibly boring. Naruto had created several clones to guard the place from all corners. But since nothing was actually happening, Naruto almost fell asleep while on his post. He woke up abruptly due to some commotion between the builders. It seemed one of them chickened out and didn't want to take the risk of his life, and so he wanted to quit. Cowards, thought Naruto. But as he studied the man's face more clearly, as well as the expression on Tazuna-san's face, he realized something. They're scared. Not just for their lives, but also for old man Tazuna too. They're worried about him. But Tazuna-san was determined to bring hope back into the Wave Country residents by finishing this bridge. No matter what they said, he refused to give in. Is that what my father was like? Wondered Naruto for no particular reason. He knew that the cost might be too high but still determined to continue on. Refusing to give in to the fear but resigned that others may not feel the same. Naruto sighed and shook his head to clear his mind. He really didn't need to think about this right now. Equals 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 equals. After Tazuna-san had finished his shift with bridge building, the two of them decided to walk down the streets of the Wave Country, going grocery shopping. Naruto was very surprised at the number of people walking around holding signs that say they would willingly take any job available. Yes, he had been to the Wave Country before, but it wasn't like this back then. Then again, the last time he had been here it was several years ago. Gato had not shown his head back then. Walking into the grocery shop, Naruto became even more depressed as he looked at the range of rotten vegetables and its limited number. All the children outside would starve, Naruto thought depressingly. However, in that moment he felt someone trying to get close to him. A thief. Not wanting to cause a scene, Naruto turned around quickly and sent a glare at the would-be thief. The thief became scared under the scrutiny of Naruto's deadly glare and ran away. Walking back to Tazuna-san's home, they were stopped again by a small orphaned girl, to which Naruto gave her his entire pack of energy bars. He wasn't a child anymore and didn't carry candies, but the ninja energy bars would most definitely sustain the child and her friends for a few days at the very least. Tazuna-san then took the opportunity to explain their country's hopeless situation and that the only hope left was to complete that bridge. Hope, Naruto thought. Hope is the strongest of all human emotion. Equals 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 equals. It was that night, during dinner, that Naruto felt slightly different from what he usually felt in the midst of strangers. For most of his life, the only person he would ever willingly sit next to while eating was the pervert Sannin himself. Naruto may not admit it, but the murder attempt on his life while he was 6 had permanently scarred him psychologically. He doesn't trust people enough to sit next to them and eat, especially strangers. Most of the time, he would order food, then find some place else to sit and eat in silence. This was probably the first time he had ever eaten food with so many people before, Irika not included of course. Naruto found it to be a surprisingly pleasant feeling. He relaxed in the company and continued to eat his food slowly and silently, while watching Sasuke and Sakura chow their food down, eating slightly more than usual. Once they both finished with their first bowl, they asked for seconds. Kakashi wondered at that and decided to ask. Sasuke, Sakura, what's gotten into you two? You usually don't eat so much. No, we have to eat, said Sasuke punctually, smirking slightly at the dumbfounded expression on Kakashi's face. We're gonna need a lot of energy to continue the training, so we'll need all the nutrients we can get, Kakashi-sensei, added Sakura proudly. Though completely bruised from head to toe, Sakura seemed to be in an incredibly good mood. Both Kakashi and Naruto nodded in acceptance, feeling quite proud that Sasuke and Sakura were getting along so well and were probably improving a lot too. After dinner, it was Sakura that asked about the picture on the wall. Unbeknownst to her, the tension in the room heightened slightly. The statements that follow led to Inari's subsequent leaving of the table and made the rest of the ninja group curious. Well, Naruto was curious but not bad enough to stick his head into other people's business. After Tazuna-san's sad story of Inari's father, the room fell into complete silence. Naruto was the first to move. He stepped confidently towards the door. But before Kakashi could ask him what he was doing, Naruto answered back, I'm keeping watch tonight as well, so the rest of you can go to sleep without worry. I'll expect Sakura and Sasuke tomorrow morning, same time, same place. And with that said, he left. Equals 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 equals. Several days passed in this fashion. Starting from 5 in the morning, Naruto would instruct Sasuke and Sakura what they would be doing for the rest of the day. By 7, Naruto would leave with Tazuna-san to work and guard him there. After work, they would go grocery shopping and return home to rest. After dinner, Naruto would instruct Sakura and Sasuke to rest plenty because the next day would be even harder. and then he would leave to do his watch of night duty. For a week, this went on, but by the end of the week, everyone had become slightly worried over Naruto's health. Yes, he did finish his breakfast, lunch and dinner, but he hadn't been getting enough sleep and the dark shadows around his eyes are proof of that. Even Sasuke was starting to be slightly concerned over his droopy-eyed expression. Kakashi had asked Naruto, or ordered him, to rest for a while and let the other two take over or just simply stop doing the night duties. But Naruto had vehemently refused. His argument back was that now would be the perfect time for the enemy to attack because Zabuza would be close to full recovery. Not to mention that he had made a promise and he always kept his promises. Kakashi almost regretted the fact that he had conned Naruto into this situation and was forced into reluctantly agree to let the teen do as he pleased. The only thing Kakashi and the other two genins could do now was to try and get stronger or better as soon as possible to relieve Naruto of his burden. Time passed. Kakashi was slowly recovering, and both Sakura and Sasuke had improved tremendously. After the first 5 days of either practicing tree climbing or physical training, both were given the opportunity to learn something new. Naruto opted to teach them how to enhance normal weapons such as a kunai with chakra. Flashback. Okay, listen up. Sasuke, since you've got more chakra in reserve and your aim is already pretty good, I'll be teaching you how to enhance the power of a kunai using chakra. And Sakura, since you are better at controlling the chakra flow, I'll be teaching you how to enhance the control over the direction of the kunai using chakra. The concept may be the same, but the end result is completely different. Here, he demonstrated the effects of each. First, Naruto threw a normal kunai at a tree and it embedded itself into the tree like normal. Next, he enhanced another kunai with chakra and threw that at the same tree. This kunai's power had been enhanced and so, it easily smashed its way right through the tree's thick trunk completely. That's the difference between a normal kunai and a chakra-enhanced kunai for power. Naruto looked back at his stunned students. But he did not pause to let the information sink in. Naruto performed a seal quickly and formed a bunshin. When he threw a normal kunai towards his very own clone, the clone dodged out of the way, easily missing the kunai by a mile. Next, he showed them the same kunai, enhancing it with chakra and threw it once again at the clone. The clone jumped away to miss the kunai, but the kunai suddenly changed direction in midair and flies back towards the clone again. The clone managed to dodge against the kunai several times until it ran out of room to dodge and became lodged in the back with said kunai, disappearing into a cloud of smoke. And that is the difference between a normal kunai and a kunai enhanced with chakra for control. It's also called the chakra-seeking kunai, because it follows the opponent until it is embedded into something with a high amount of chakra, or you can direct it with your own chakra using manipulation techniques. Naruto concluded his demonstration. End flashback. It had taken the two several more days, but they've finally managed to learn those techniques as well. As expected, Sasuke had taken to the power-enhanced kunais more, while Sakura always preferred the enhanced control over the movement of the kunai, instead of the power it exerts. After those practices, Naruto had also taught them some useful but low-level jutsu that aren't very well known. These jutsu do not take up much chakra and can be used easily like the basic academy jutsus. Sakura was taught how to disguise herself with invisibility jinjutsu, as well as how to create illusionary bunshins to trick the opponent into thinking that they were real Kage bunshins. Both these tricks do not use up much chakra, so Sakura was able to perfect them easily. Sasuke, on the other hand, opted for more offensive jutsus. He had learnt Naruto's own original jutsu called Raikan Mahi no Jutsu, lightning shock paralysis, which when used in conjunction with taijutsu was very deadly and effective. Basically, chakra is forced into the palm of the user's hands and then converted into electricity. When used in hand-to-hand combat, anywhere the user touches his opponent with his chakra-infused hands, the opponent will be shocked with a burst of lightning and will be paralyzed for a time, enabling the user to finish him off easily. The longer the user has a hold on his opponent, the longer and more painful the shock and paralysis. After that, Naruto asked them to find some time to spar against one another. Their different styles complemented each other. Sakura would usually be defensive and use tricks to get around her opponent. Sasuke, being physically stronger, prefers to use all-out hand-to-hand combat skills and be more offensive. The two of them had learnt in a very short time how to work as an efficient team. However, because, for most of the time, Naruto wasn't with them, their teamwork with the blonde was still slightly strained, but they've all learned how to respect and trust each other throughout the training period. Equals 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 equals. Finally, one day almost 2 weeks after their fight with Zabuza, Naruto was found sleeping, lying on the ground against a tree with his arms wrapped around his knees. This was the sight that greeted Haku early in the morning as he went to pick the herbal weeds he needed. Deciding he should wake the boy up even though Haku easily recognized Naruto as one of the leaf ninjas that had fought Zabuza-san, but he didn't want to fight right now. As Haku's hand reached closer and closer towards a sleeping Naruto, he was completely surprised when Naruto's hand immediately snapped up and grabbed onto Haku's wrist tightly. It was then that Naruto started yawning widely while waking up groggily. Naruto looked up with bleary eyes at a stranger. Who are you? Haku smiled gently. I'm just a villager. I saw you sleeping here on this uncomfortable ground, so I thought I would wake you. Naruto realized he was still holding on to Haku's hand and immediately let go of it. Then, he gave another mouth-splitting yawn and stretched his arms to the sides. Scratching his head sheepishly, Naruto grinned at the boy. Sorry about that. It would actually be safer if you called me up from a distance away. Haku blinked innocently, but he also noticed the dark circles that surrounded Naruto's normally vibrant blue eyes. You look really tired. Maybe you should just return to sleep. I won't bother you this time. Naruto shook his head and smiled. No thank you. I can't sleep now. I've still got some training to get done. Haku looked at him curiously again, then made as if he only just recognized the ninja head protector. You? That head protector? Are you a ninja? Naruto tapped the head protector strapped around his head proudly. Yep. Wow, you must be really strong, Haku said amazed. Naruto shrugged nonchalantly and looked at the ground instead, as if ashamed. I guess. Haku blinked in confusion. You don't seem very enthusiastic about being a ninja. Why? He asked curiously. Naruto shrugged helplessly again as he continued to focus on the ground and let the silence stretch. Haku had almost given up hope for any answer and started shifting around to gather the herbs he wanted. He was again shocked when he heard Naruto whisper, Do you know that sometimes people are born with a destiny that they don't like and can't change? One. Haku, with his back to Naruto, nodded in understanding, though was still slightly taken back and tense around the subject that Naruto was talking about currently. I'm one of those people. Have a burden in which only I carry and no one else. Because of that, I can't trust people. I don't let them get close. And then I become lonely. Again, Haku nodded in understanding, still with his back to Naruto. This conversation is bringing back a whole shitload of bad memories. I thought I've put all of these memories behind me. Haku thought sadly as he tried to imagine what Naruto had gone through in his life. So, I decided to change myself. Now I'm a ninja. I have to become strong. And I have to find some answers, concluded Naruto. 2. Pipped with curiosity and intrigue, Haku asked, Is it for your benefit or are you fighting for someone else? Another long silence ensued. I don't know exactly. Sometimes it's purely for me, but sometimes I just don't want others to be hurt. Taking a deep breath of courage, Haku turned around to face Naruto once again. He was surprised at the amount of sadness reflected in those lonely blue eyes. Taking another deep breath, he asked, Do you have someone who is important to you? This time it was Naruto's turn to look confused. Haku giggled at his expression and decided to elaborate. When a person has something important to protect, that's when they can truly become strong. Naruto took some time to think about that statement. It's the same thing that pervert Sannin said to me. Without looking at Haku, Naruto answered the original question. I can understand, but I guess I'm still looking for my most precious person. Or, in a way, my most precious person is no longer within my reach. Father. Haku nodded again, then stood up and started walking away, indicating that he had gathered enough herbs and needed to get going. You will become strong. Let's meet again somewhere sometime. Yep, Naruto called out after him. Oh, and one more thing. I'm a boy. Haku smiled as he continued on his way. I know. Naruto smirked behind him. As Haku walked away, Sasuke came in the opposite direction and looked over Haku suspiciously but ignored it as a coincidence. Equals 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 equals. A few hours later, while Naruto has gone with Tazuna-san to the bridge, Kakashi decided to check up on his students' progress. He made his way towards the woodlands and followed the sounds of fighting that he could hear. Upon reaching the clearing that Naruto had used to teach Sasuke and Sakura, he was shocked at seeing his two students sparring against one another. Sakura jumped from a perch on a tree, holding a kunai tightly in her hand. She then landed perfectly on top of Sasuke, whom also had a kunai in his hand. A high-pitched sound resulted from the impact of the two kunais striking each other. Sasuke then pulled his full weight against Sakura's kunai, and since he was heavier, he was able to push Sakura off of him. Sakura jumped off gracefully, finishing a somersault in midair and landed onto the ground lightly. Both then threw their kunais at each other. Sasuke decided to take a defensive stance while Sakura ran towards him in a charge. The kunai that Sasuke threw at Sakura was charged with chakra, increasing its power, so when it struck against Sakura's kunai, it forced Sakura's kunai off course and continued on its journey towards Sakura. However, Sakura was too fast and she immediately stepped toward the side to avoid the kunai with her speed. Sasuke's kunai impacted onto the ground and a resulting explosion can be heard throughout the woods. The crater of the impact was at least a meter wide. Sasuke grunted at his missed opportunity but had to duck quickly to avoid Sakura's previous kunai, which was charged with chakra to maintain control. The kunai changed direction again in mid-air and heads back towards Sasuke, whom was doing his best to avoid the flying kunai. Ducking, dodging, sidestepping and jumping, Sasuke just managed to avoid the kunai each time. He became so focused on the kunai that he did not immediately see Sakura running towards him in high speed from his blind spot. Sakura suddenly appeared beside Sasuke and punched him in the face with all her power behind it. Sasuke took the punch, but immediately formed a small set of seals afterwards. Chakra was then formed on his right hand and he struck her in the stomach with it while he was thrown back from the impact of her punch. Sakura, too, fell onto the ground due to Sasuke's attack, which led the two of them into a tie. Oi oi! Very good moves, Sakura. Impressive maneuvering, Sasuke, called Kakashi to his students as he clapped his hands in appreciation. However, he was curious about the seal that Sasuke had preformed against Sakura, because in all his years, Kakashi had never seen it before. Sasuke, what jutsu is that? The one you just used? He asked. It's called Raiken Mahi no Jutsu. It changes chakra into electricity and shocks the opponent while paralyzing them. Sasuke answered breathlessly, his jaw still in pain due to Sakura's punch. I see. Kakashi nodded. Must be one of Naruto's original jutsus. Damn, wish I had my Sharingan on just then. Oh well, there'll be other opportunities. Kakashi looked over his students and was highly impressed at how much they have grown. Just watching the previous fight, Kakashi was able to determine that both of them have improved on their speed and strength. Sasuke had also become exceptionally fast, almost as fast as Naruto, or as fast as the Naruto that had fought against Kakashi that first time. Kakashi was still unsure how fast or powerful Naruto actually is. Sakura too had improved tremendously. Her petite little body had developed quite a lot of firm muscles around, indicating that she had been very hard at work doing physical exercises every day. Not to mention they were both pretty good fighters now. Soon, they will be able to finally give Naruto the time to rest and sleep properly in a real bed, as the three of them would take over all the night watches and day guards. Kakashi himself had almost completely recovered. Equals 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 equals. That night, Naruto literally slumped onto the chair and table due to his fatigue. Even he had to admit those 2 weeks of hardly any sleep and continual watch and teaching duty was wearing him thin with exhaustion. The others, sitting around the dinner table, all looked at him with varying signs of worry in their eyes. Even though Sasuke and Sakura have been training hard, but at least they received decent amounts of sleep and food every day. Naruto wasn't even eating properly anymore due to his tiredness, making him have no appetite for food. The only occupant in the house that didn't look at Naruto in worry was Inari. He glared hatefully at Naruto from across the table as his mother served his food. Finally, without reason, Inari just couldn't take it anymore and decided he needed to shout at someone to release his pent-up frustration, anger, and hurt. Naruto just so happened to become the lucky contestant to bear the blunt of it. With tears leaking from his eyes, Inari shouted at Naruto, "Why do you guys bother to try so hard? No matter how hard you train, you're still no match for Gatu's men. No matter what glorious claim you make or how hard you work, when facing the strong, the weak will only end up getting killed." Everyone was shocked at Inari's sudden outburst, but Naruto just ignored it all and buried his head in his arms on the table. A softly spoken word was all his answer. "Whatever." Inari's passionate shouts continued. "I'd hate to be like you. You don't know anything about this country, yet you're being so nosy. You are completely different from me. You don't know how hard life can be." Naruto's temper flared at the last sentence. He slammed his hand down onto the table so hard that the entire room reverberated with the shockwave. Surprisingly, the table was still intact after the impact. Naruto gazed steadily at the tearful Inari and said in a softly but icy voice, "So it's okay for you to pose as the star of a tragedy and cry all day? Then just keep on crying forever. You cry baby." Inari's lips trembled at the coldness of his words. "I'm glad I'm not like you, because if I were, I would have committed suicide a long time ago." A long pause settled in the room, for no one else had anything to add, nor do they know how to cut the thick tension hanging in the air. Most of them, with the exception of Kakashi, didn't understand why Naruto had said what he said. Naruto continued with his argument in an icy tone. "Don't you ever tell me I don't know how hard life can be. Because I do know." Inari's eyes widened slightly as Naruto's own eyes started turning slightly amethyst in color. "And I accept it." Finally finished with what he wanted to say, Naruto turned around abruptly and left the room, mumbling something about finally sleeping in a real bed. Kakashi had already spoken with him beforehand, stating that Naruto would stay at home for the next few days to get his strength up, while the other three would take turns to do all the other duties. Once Naruto had left, the silence continued. Kakashi, unable to contain the silence, broke it with his own assurances. "Inari." When the boy didn't look up, Kakashi decided to keep going anyway. Naruto didn't mean any harm by what he said. It's probably just the stress that he's been under lately that has pushed him to say those words. "Don't worry about it, okay?" However, these words did little to alleviate the tension. Everyone did eventually continued on with their meal, but in complete silence. Naruto didn't even touch his dinner again. Equals 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 equals. That same night, but much later, found Inari and Kakashi sitting outside in the docks together. Kakashi tried to find a way to broach the subject at hand and decided to start with the obvious. Tazuna-san told us about your father. Seeing some reaction, Kakashi continued. Like you, Naruto also grew up without a father. Actually, he's never known any of his parents, and he's never even had a single friend either. Jiraiya is considered his guardian and Iruka is practically his brother. So no, Naruto does not have any friends. The truth is, he's had a rougher past than you. Better not mention the part about the murder attempt. Thought Kakashi. Ha! Came Inari's confused expression. Kakashi looked into Inari's sad eyes and emphasized his next point. But I have never seen him cry or complain. Pausing for effect. It's because of that, looks for the right word, isolation that sometimes he doesn't trust people. It's a very lonely existence he'd had to live through, but he's still trying to fit in, to care, to be in a group, and to earn that group's acknowledgement. He's probably sick and tired of crying and being alone. He knows what it really means to be strong, perhaps even more so than your father or myself. Naruto may understand your feelings better than anyone, commented Kakashi. What? Inari's eyes showed a little bit of indignation and refusal, not understanding how Kakashi could compare him to Naruto. Kakashi smiled at him indulgently, because even though he doesn't show it, Naruto doesn't seem to be able to be not concerned about you. I remember I overheard Jiraiya-sama saying something about Naruto having a major weakness when it came to kids in pain, especially the younger ones. The next day, Kakashi, Sakura, Sasuke and Tazuna all set off towards the bridge. Naruto was left in the house to finally have some peace and quiet to sleep. Chapter 4. Naruto awakened to the sounds of bird chirping happily outside of his window, as well as the bright sunshine beaming onto his face. He blinked groggily, deciding to turn away from the light and bury himself under the blankets again. Ugh, what's wrong with me? Naruto blinked several times and finally gazed blearily at his current surrounding, an unfamiliar room. His mind slowly rose to conscious level and he realized that this is his room, the one he had never used until now. Oh, that's why it's so much more comfortable than the forest ground, Naruto thought as he closed his eyes in tiredness, allowing himself to fall asleep again. After a few long minutes of just lying on his futon, covered by blankets, Naruto realized that there was no way he could go back to sleep. He had always been a very energetic person, so once he's up indefinitely. There's no point in staying in bed. I'm just avoiding the inevitable. Depressingly, Naruto knew that he still didn't want to deal with the Inari issue from last night. I suppose I should apologize. Some of the things I've said weren't necessary. After a few more moments spent on reviewing his words last night, Naruto decided that he really didn't want to do it now. I'll apologize later, just not now. Recognizing it as just an excuse, Naruto was still too hungry and too tired to bother pushing the subject at hand. I didn't even finish my dinner last night, grumbled Naruto mentally. After leaving his comfortable haven, Naruto set out to brush his teeth, comb his hair, change his clothes and finally, decided that he was ready to face the outside world. Upon reaching the kitchen, Naruto only found Tsunami there. Oh, Naruto-kun, you're finally awake. Tsunami smiled at him, as if the events of last night didn't even faze her. Your breakfast is already prepared. I'll just bring it out for you now. And she set about doing just that. Naruto sat nervously on the chair next to the empty table as Tsunami served him his well-earned food. He expected at least some backlash from the way he acted towards her son yesterday night and didn't really like the fact that they're all ignoring the problem. Sighing, Naruto decided to be the first to broach the subject at hand. About last night, I'm really sorry. I didn't. It's quite all right, Tsunami interrupted. Naruto only managed to blink back at her wide-eyed in response. She giggled at his expression and made to sit down beside him on the table. Listen, Naruto, I don't blame you for reacting like that last night. I know you've been under a lot of stress lately. And frankly, Inari kinda deserved that. He really needed someone to force the truth on him. And I'm just not strong enough to do that. Tsunami looked down sadly. I'm glad you said what you said. though not the way you said it. One way or the other, he needed to hear it. And for that, I thank you for having the courage in doing that. After that finished statement, Tsunami returned to doing what she was doing beforehand, and Naruto was left alone to contemplate what had just happened while he finished his breakfast in a mechanical fashion. It wasn't ramen after all, so he didn't need to show any enthusiasm towards eating it. After his late breakfast, Naruto decided to take a stroll outside. Equals 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 equals. Is he gone? Inari whispered to his mother in the kitchen. Yes, dear. Naruto went out for a walk, answered Tsunami. Inari sighed and sat at the same table that Naruto had just left only moments ago. A long silence ensued as Inari tried to find something to talk about. Finding none, he shook his head in frustration and started getting up off the chair and left the kitchen to go to his room. Half an hour later, Tsunami got two very unexpected visitors. Two of Gatu's henchmen, wearing samurai-like clothes, sliced their way through the front door of Tezuna's home and started walking in as if they owned the place. Tsunami was shocked and scared, knowing that she was currently helpless without the added protection of the ninjas. She of course froze in fear. The men asked her if she was Tsunami, Tezuna's daughter. She nodded jerkingly in reply. They smiled savagely at her and grabbed onto her arms, telling her that she had become their hostage from now on. Inari, hearing his mother scream while still in his bedroom, ran towards the sound to investigate. As a result, he found the kitchen and living room trashed and his mother shivering in fear on the floor, arms being grabbed tightly by two strangers with swords strapped onto their belts. "M.O.M." Inari screamed in fright. "What? A kid?" One of the men seemed surprised. "Inari, don't come near me. Run away." Tsunami shrieked, knowing that whatever happens to her doesn't matter, as long as Inari is safe. "Should we take him too?" the same man asked the other. "We only need one hostage," answered his partner. "Heh. Should I kill him?" The first man sneered viciously, striding towards a shivering Inari on the ground. The ugly-looking man slowly but surely pulled his long sword out, ignoring Tsunami's desperate shouts in the background. Inari shook violently in fear and started crying as he watched the two men descend on him. "Wait! If you touch that child, I will bite my tongue and kill myself. You hear me? You want a hostage, right? Then leave him alone." Tsunami screamed to catch both men's attention, and showed her determination in doing just as she had threatened if they did not comply. After a moment of silence, the man pushed his sword back where it belonged and started walking away, leaving a sniveling Inari where he had kneeled over in fear and resignation. "Heh, thank your mom, kid." As the two men continued to mumble to each other and dragged a reluctant Tsunami away, all Inari did was kneel on the floor and cry, "Mom, I'm sorry. I'm weak. I couldn't protect you, and I don't want to die. I'm afraid and scared. I don't want to die." That was the moment when memories of Naruto's words came back. "So it's okay for you to pose as the star of a tragedy and cry all day? Then just keep on crying forever. You cry, baby." Kakashi's previous words also added to the effect. He's probably sick and tired of crying and being alone. He knows what it really means to be strong, perhaps even more so than your father or myself. And so did his late father's words. If it's really precious, even if you lose your life, you must protect it with these two hands. They're all so incredible, so cool, and so strong. Will I also be able to become strong, Dad? With each thought, more flashes of memories, good ones, bad ones, all flicked in Inari's mind, helping him make one final choice. Inari rubbed his eyes clear of the tears that had plagued him for years. "It's time I stopped being a crybaby." "Wait!" shouted Inari as he ran towards the two men and his mother with determination blazing in his eyes. "I will not run. I cannot run. I'm not running away anymore." "One. Ha, it's that kid?" the first man who had threatened to kill Inari said in astonishment and amusement. "Inari, What are you doing? Shrieked Tsunami in fear. No, don't come here. Run, Inari. Run away. I won't run anymore. Let go of my mom. Inari bellowed in anger. Cut him, ordered the man who rarely spoke. Sure, smiled the first, eager to finally get some action. Inari, screamed Tsunami in fright. Just as the two men raised their swords, intending to slice Inari into pieces, they were both surprised that what they had cut in their haste was nothing more than pieces of wood. Kawarimi no Jutsu went through both men's mind as a new voice joined their confusion. Sorry for being late, but great job, Inari. A slightly tired Naruto smiled genuinely back at Inari, whom was looking at him with shock written over his face. Tsunami was also safely taken away from the two henchmen as she was now sitting behind a relaxed Naruto. The two men were obviously furious at being tricked by a brat and started charging towards Naruto in rage. Naruto stood confidently in front waiting for them. Are you going to be okay? Asked a nervous Inari, looking back and forth between Naruto and the charging men. I'm fine. I wouldn't even have to lift a finger. Naruto smirked as several Kaga Bunshins, shadow clones, suddenly jumped out of the surrounding water, and some even appearing behind the henchmen themselves. After a few seconds of fighting, the clones triumphantly disappeared into smoke, leaving behind two very battered and bruised men. How did you know these samurais were coming here? Asks Inari curiously. HN, there was a cut-up boar in the forest, and a bunch of trees had sword marks on them as well. The marks were heading this way, so I got worried. But I still stayed behind a while to help heal the injured boar, since it wasn't dead yet, and I rushed back here as fast as I could, explained Naruto sheepishly. Actually, he had to take a slight rest after healing the boar. He had exerted himself quite a bit to reach here in time. He's still very tired from his 2 weeks of almost no sleep and very limited food. A slight pause in silence followed. Naruto took a deep breath and tried to broach the original subject that he dreaded. Again, Inari. Huh? Asked Inari, uncertain. Naruto rubbed his head sheepishly. About yesterday. I'm sorry. I didn't mean those words. Just forget it, okay? Breathing in another gulp of courage, Naruto reached out and rubbed Inari's head affectionately. The last time he's done that was on Ellie's, head, which was more than 2 years ago. I was wrong, you are strong. Naruto's final words brought Inari to tears. Inari's eyes widened in surprise and started building up with moisture. Damn it. I decided I wasn't going to cry anymore. You're going to make fun of me and call me a crybaby. Inari struggled to stop the tears. Naruto pulled him in for a hug. I never said it was wrong to cry, just don't cry all the time. People cry for different reasons because they're scared, angry, hurt, happy, and so on. Sometimes, it's good to release your emotions in tears. Just never give up hope. It's okay to cry when you're happy. Inari hugged Naruto back in relief. Without letting go of Inari, Naruto looked back at the beaten-up henchmen. If they're here, then Kakashi, Sasuke, and Sakura would also have their hands full right about now. I'm gonna go and help them. Looking back at a smiling Inari, I can count on you here, right? Yup. Inari finally let go of the hug and held up his thumb in a good guy sign. Naruto smiled and disappeared into a cloud of smoke, using teleportation instead of traveling on foot. 3 equals 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 equals. At the bridge around the same time as Naruto starting to take his walk, so the timing was the same. Kakashi and company had just arrived at the bridge building site only to find all the rest of the bridge builders lying dead or unconscious on the ground. Immediately, the ninja group members formed a slight circle around Tazuna, protecting him from the unseen enemy. Just then, a slow and slightly visible mist surrounded the group, and suddenly, 10 Zabuza forms emerged from the mist. Mizu Bunshins, water clones, confirmed all 3 ninjas, as both Sasuke and Sakura started shivering in tension and excitement. Kakashi looked over at Sasuke, nodding in his direction as an indication for him to start first. Sasuke nodded back and immediately disappeared from view, silently slicing up each and every clone in sight using his newly acquired skills of the chakra-enhanced kunais and his newly developed speed. Within seconds, Sasuke had returned to his original position and all 10 clones splatter into water molecules. That's when Haku and the real Zabuza finally emerged from the surrounding mist. Zabuza made a slight comment to Haku, saying that he might have found a new rival in speed. Haku nodded back silently, acknowledging the fact that Zabuza had just asked him to take care of the Genins. Haku stepped forward in a challenging stance, aiming his steady gaze at Sasuke. "I'll take care of him," Sasuke said, not moving his gaze from the boy, but he could see the others agreeing from the corner of his eyes. He too stepped forward to accept the challenge. Suddenly, both Haku and Sasuke advanced into fighting positions. Haku spun into action, reaching Sasuke's side in less than a second, and tried to stab him with a metal needle. Sasuke reacted by blocking it with his own chakra-enhanced kunai, clashing metal against metal. But Haku's needles started to bend under the stress of the powerful kunai, and he decided to change tactic by performing a one-handed seal. He can do seals with one hand. This thought went through all 3 Konoha ninjas' minds, but it was short-lived, because just then, Haku stomped his foot on the ground and the jutsu immediately reacted. Haijutsu Sensatsu Sueisho no Jutsu. Special Jutsu. Flying Water Needles. Haku yelled as the metal needle held in his hand finally gave way to the more powerful kunai. But it did not matter anyway, for Haku had immediately jumped to the side to avoid the multitude of water needles that had since surged from the surrounding wet grounds and poised to strike at Sasuke. To Haku's surprise, Sasuke was able to dodge the needles by jumping straight up, avoiding all of their deadly strikes. From the air, Sasuke shot several chakra-enhanced shurikens at Haku. Haku managed to dodge all of these power-enhanced shurikens as he backflipped away from danger. The shurikens barely missed harming Haku's body and landed on the surface of the bridge, leaving behind crater-like holes a meter wide each. Haku backflipped one final time onto the ledge of the bridge and launched himself to the side, trying to avoid the last shuriken. To his surprise, the shuriken changed direction in mid-air and continued flying towards him. Haku shifted to his side slightly again, just barely missing the shuriken, but it still managed to cut across Haku's right shoulder, resulting in some small amounts of blood being released from the wound. When the shuriken turned around again to aim at Haku, Haku managed to grab onto it with his right hand and started dissolving Sasuke's chakra with his own, returning the shuriken to normal. Things made out of chakra can be destroyed by simply pouring chakra into them. However, Haku had become so focused on the shuriken that he didn't realize, until too late, that Sasuke had suddenly appeared behind him and was trying to stab him with another kunai. Haku barely blocked the second attack with his left arm. Nevertheless, as he saw Sasuke preparing to flick the chakra-enhanced kunai right into his face, he ducked in time to miss the kunai flying past, just barely missing his head. By then, Haku barely noticed Sasuke twisting his body in such a way that he managed to ram Haku's face with his swinging foot. Thrown from the impact, Haku immediately tried to gather himself together, doing a somersault in midair and landing awkwardly on the wet ground, dragging himself a bit due to the slipperiness of the water. As Haku looked up, Sasuke had already prepared a new seal. Gokakyu no Jutsu, powerful fireball technique, yelled Sasuke as he blew a huge burst of fire from his mouth towards Haku. Haku reacted instantly, performing a seal of his own. Suijin Heki no Jutsu, water barrier no Jutsu, he yelled, creating a huge wall of water to dispose of Sasuke's fire. Once the fire was dissolved, revealing Sasuke's annoyed face on the other side, Haku launched himself into another set of seals. While doing so, he commented to Sasuke, "It seems I have underestimated you. It won't happen again." He called upon the water summoned by his previous jutsu to surround Sasuke completely and then finish performing his most deadly seal. Hijitsu, Makyu Hyushu, Special Jutsu, Demonic Ice Mirrors. Sasuke was soon stunned into immobility as shards of mirrors started forming from all sides surrounding him. Sasuke pulled himself out of his shock and started launching Gokakyu no Jutsu, powerful fireball techniques, one after another, trying desperately to melt the ice mirrors before they completed their formation, but to no avail. Again, to Sasuke's surprise, Haku seemed to approach the mirror and merge into it, becoming part of its reflection. Sasuke started shooting several chakra-enhanced kunais towards that particular mirror, hoping to kill Haku while he was in it. However, to Sasuke's continual annoyance and horror, all the kunais struck through the mirror, but then the mirror itself quickly started regenerating until it revived itself into its original form. "You won't be able to escape my demonic ice mirrors," Haku said icily as his reflection began appearing on all the mirror's surfaces, and he started to bombard Sasuke with his metal needles for all corners. Sasuke screamed, trying desperately to avoid the deadly needles. ARRGGG equals 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 equals. Sakura, guard Tazuna and stay behind me. If you can, get the rest of the workers out of here, Kakashi ordered as he watched Sasuke's fight anxiously, though purposely not showing any of his nervousness in front of his enemy. Hearing the scream, he rushed off towards his pupil, but was suddenly blocked by Zabuza when he somersaulted over the demonic mirrors and landed directly in front of him. "Your opponent is me, Kakashi," Zabuza sneered cruelly. "Damn," thought Kakashi. "If you get by me, I'll kill those two behind you." Thoroughly worried about Sasuke, now trapped in the ice mirrors, Sakura decided to take a small chance and began running towards the others while throwing another chakra-enhanced kunai at the mirrors, hoping that the mirror was weaker on the outside so she could get through to help Sasuke. Sakura was surprised and then disappointed when Haku unrepentantly emerged from the mirror, catching her kunai easily. Zabuza saw his opportunity to kill Tazuna right there and then, so he threw several shurikens towards Sakura, aiming to kill her. At the same time, he immediately followed that action by swinging his massive sword in an arc, trying to decapitate Kakashi, while he was distracted by Sakura's actions. In front of him, Kakashi blocked the swing with a kunai of his own, and both of them could hear Sakura blocking all the shurikens that Zabuza had sent her way with her own kunai in hand. "Thank God I asked Naruto to train them beforehand," thought Kakashi while he concentrated on trying to kick Zabuza away so that he may be able to reach Sasuke. However, Zabuza, recognizing what he was trying to do, decided on jumping backwards, dragging his massive sword with him as he made the mist thicken by doing several more quick hand seals. With the decreased visibility, Kakashi cursed himself mentally because he had forgotten that Zabuza was a silent killer and he had the advantage currently. A sound of movement was suddenly heard from behind, and Kakashi immediately turned around just in time to see Sakura blocking Zabuza's big sword from slicing Tazuna-san straight down the middle. Sakura's speed and senses had developed a lot. Kakashi started rushing towards them and managed to kick Zabuza's sword away from a struggling Sakura from his side. Sliding in front to block Zabuza from his prey, Kakashi quickly lifted his head protector to reveal the Sharingan. Finally, with the Sharingan on, Kakashi would probably be able to combat against Zabuza more effectively. Behind him, Sakura quickly performed a new set of seals, grabbing onto Tazuna-san and disappearing into the mist. She had just used the invisibility genjutsu that Naruto had taught her, and had also completely erased any sight, sound, scent, or any other sense of them, even if they are hidden in the mist. Equals 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 equals. While Kakashi was busy with Zabuza, Sasuke was finding it very difficult to figure out a way to defeat his opponent. Now, with his limited Sharingan that had showed up during his fight inside the Makyu Hyushu, demonic ice mirrors, Sasuke was able to dodge most of Haku's deadly needles but was still at a loss in finding a way out of this death trap. With all the continuous fighting, Sasuke was rapidly running out of chakra and soon would be unable to do any more jutsus. Finally, deciding on trying out one last time at breaking Haku's mirrors, Sasuke decided to use up the rest of his chakra in this final attack. Sasuke acted upon his plan during the fight when Haku started leaving the safety of his ice mirrors to rush towards Sasuke, intending to stab him with his needles in close combat. Sasuke hit back using his kunai. He managed to punch Haku's face and force him to fly back due to the impact, smashing against a mirror then falling forward onto the ground. Gaining some time, Sasuke immediately threw another chakra-enhanced kunai towards Haku, whom recovered just in time to use his hands to push and jumped backwards, merging back into the mirror, barely avoiding the kunai hitting him. Said kunai smashed through the mirror, but before Sasuke had a chance to escape, Haku reformed his mirror, blocking Sasuke's escape. To Haku's surprise, the kunai had a string attached to it still held by Sasuke. Sasuke quickly held the string within his mouth, performing a few hand seals, and called forth a new technique. Katan, Ryuka no Kutsu, Fire type, Dragon Fire no Jutsu. 4. Fire appeared from Sasuke's lips and traveled down the string, quickly setting alight the mirror that was blocking its path following the kunai. Haku quickly thrust his hand out, grabbing onto the string before the fire reached his mirror and froze it. The ice that flowed from Haku's chakra consumed the fire completely. Once done, Haku easily cut the string away to complete the reformation his mirror, while Sasuke knelt on the floor in exhaustion. Keeping the Sharingan going was really draining his chakra, and with that last assault, Sasuke wasn't sure if he could continue fighting anymore. Haku then performed a familiar seal as he had used it before, Haijutsu Sensetsu no Jutsu, Special Jutsu, Flying Water Needles. The leftover water on the ground lifted up and started flying towards Sasuke from every angle, striking his already battered body into submission. Sasuke tried to escape, but with the mirrors blocking his upward passage, he could only avoid so much using his Sharingan. As a result, he ended up being stabbed very deeply on some parts of his back. Bleeding profusely, Sasuke finally collapsed onto the cold floor in exhaustion again. This time he had completely used up all his chakra and was unable to battle anymore. Closing his eyes in anger, frustration, and disappointment, Sasuke waited for Haku to kill him off. "Damn it! Why? Why am I still so weak?" bellowed Sasuke mentally. "Am I still not strong enough? How far am I supposed to go to finally reach up to you, brother? How hard am I supposed to work? And now, I'm about to die. I don't want to die." Desperately hoping for a miracle, the fates seemed to have answered him this time. Haku was just about to finish off Sasuke within the confines of his mirror, when a sudden wave blast of water overflowing with lightning and electricity smashed against one side of his row of demonic ice mirrors. The water forced its way through the barrier, breaking one of the mirrors and flooding the area within, surrounding protectively around the fallen form of Sasuke, while electrocuting Haku with a high voltage of electricity as it went by. Raiten Mizu Bakuhatsu, Lightning Water Blast/Explosion. 5. The calm voice of Naruto filtered in as he smashed his way through the mirror's foundations. For the time being, Haku was unable to move due to the paralysis caused by the electricity still coursing through his veins, so he could only watch on as the electrified water slowly dissipated, letting Naruto across the still wet ground. He walked slowly towards Sasuke and knelt down next to him, starting a quiet conversation with the fallen boy. "Always late, aren't you? Still as unmotivated as ever, dope." Sasuke grunted through his pain. "At least I have my pride." Naruto smiled slightly at Sasuke's ever-arrogant attitude, even when facing death. "Don't talk and don't move. You'll be fine, Sasuke." Naruto checked over Sasuke's injuries but found that the needles did not attack any vital points. So with time, Sasuke would recover completely. Sasuke gasped in slight pain as he is being lightly probed with a gentle finger and showed some of his fear. "I don't want to die. I still have my dream. To kill Itachi." "Hush now, rest, you'll be fine. Just tired. Let me handle the battle for now." Naruto looked at Sasuke determinedly. "Heh, and let you hog all the glory, no thanks." Sasuke snorted. Naruto smiled gently again. "I don't think you're in any position to complain. I'll give you permission to kick my butt later, but for now, let me handle things." "Heh, A baka all the way, said Sasuke as he drifted into unconsciousness, and Naruto quickly tried to heal some of the more severe wounds by pushing his own chakra into Sasuke to strengthen his body. I know he would never allow me to heal him if he was conscious, so it's better if he stays unconscious. Once satisfied with Sasuke's eventual recovery, Naruto stood up once again to face Haku. Already, the ice mirrors have all reformed and Haku had recovered from his paralysis. That was impressive, but I will not let it happen again. With that said, Haku launched many needles towards Naruto. Naruto dodged most of them, but some still managed to injure him slightly. Coming to a standstill, Naruto took the opportunity to have a talk with Haku. Why? Why are you fighting us? Why are you trying to destroy Sasuke's dream, Tazuna-san's dream, by killing them? Naruto asked, hoping that it would bring some remorse into the other boy. Because I too have a dream. I want to protect someone precious to me, to work and fight for that person, to make that person's dream come true. My dream is to fulfill Zabuza-san's ambition, to help him take over the water country and become the Mizukage himself. Haku answered determinedly. Why Zabuza? Naruto questioned, still not quite understanding. I know you. You are that boy I met yesterday morning. Why did you not kill me then when you had the chance, instead of choosing to fight us now? Because... Haku paused. To become a true shinobi is difficult for me. If possible, I don't want to kill you and I don't want you to kill me. However, if you come at me to stop Zabuza-san, I can destroy my kind heart with a blade and become a true shinobi. This bridge is the place where we fight for our dreams. For my dream, I can become a shinobi and kill you. Do you understand? Haku confirmed. Yes, I understand. Naruto nodded in recognition that there was nothing he can say that will sway the boy's opinion. And for my dream, I can't die here. No matter what the cost, I refuse to die. Naruto also acknowledged this fact, but continued with the rest of his explanation. However, I won't kill you. Then you are naive and not a true shinobi. Shinobis are tools of war that are without emotions and feelings. We are simply weapons. Haku shifted into a battle stance as he ended his part of the conversation. I know, but I refuse to acknowledge that path. Naruto made his final point. Quietly, Naruto mumbled to himself, though still talking to Haku. He ended the rest of his point almost subconsciously. I'm a lot like you. I used to be like that, but I don't want to be anymore. I'll follow my own path, the path I chose. With the conversation finished, Naruto immediately performed a complicated seal. Kuchiyose no Jutsu, Tenkin no Buki, Come Forth, Jinshur no Haimo, Summoning Technique, Weapons of the 10 Heavenly Warriors, Silver Strings of Death. 6. A puff of smoke appeared and slid away, revealing a metal object on Naruto's right wrist. It looked like a thick metal wristband shaped like a common reel of thread, only bigger, with the hole able to fit a person's wrist through. These particular threads in this device were made up of millions of tiny silver strings. Haku, confused by the odd-looking object, chose to ignore it and sent hundreds of needles towards Naruto. Naruto calmly raised his right hand, with the object attached, towards Haku and said in a soft tone, "Absolute defense." Immediately, the strings originally wrapped around Naruto's wrist object started moving of their own accord. Many strings began twisting and swirling around Naruto, creating a barrier protecting Naruto and Sasuke from the oncoming needles, battling and deflecting them easily. Having dealt with the needles, Naruto silently sent all the silver strings to launch at all the ice mirrors, smashing its way through the thin ice and shattering them in the process by absorbing the chakra used to create them. At the same time, Naruto also sent 3 strings towards Haku, smashing its way through the mirror currently inhabited by him to wrap around Haku's left and right wrist tightly, as well as his abdomen. Haku was rendered immobile as the strings pushed him directly through the demonic mirror and started sucking up his chakra as well. With Haku in possession, the rest of the demonic mirrors slowly started to crumble away and the rest of the strings returned to Naruto, leaving only the 3 attached to Haku. Looking around, Naruto sensed someone close by, whom had used his own original jutsus to hide themselves. Could only be Sakura. He then ordered her to take care of Sasuke while he dealt with Haku, which she promptly did. Equals 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 equals. Currently, Kakashi was busy parrying all of Zabuza's shurikens, kunais, and his big sword. Slightly slowing down during part of the fight, Kakashi purposely let Zabuza land a hit on his right shoulder, resulting in a large wound as well as leaving a trail of blood on the big weapon. That was the moment when Zabuza became distracted by Haku's scream of pain as he was pinned by Naruto's strings. With the time that Naruto had granted him, Kakashi quickly pulled a scroll out of his vest, flipping it through the air, rolling it open and dabbing part of his blood on it, closing the scroll again and performed a complicated seal. Once finished, he slammed his hand, with the scroll it between, onto the ground and shouted, "Ninpu summon! Doton! Suga no Jutsu! Earth type! Earth tracking Fong no Jutsu!" Once the words were called, Kakashi's summon dogs immediately buried themselves underground, traveling towards Zabuza's currently location using their sensitive sense of smell. Once located, the dogs smashed their way out of the ground, surprising Zabuza and biting him into immobilization. While the dogs kept Zabuza trapped, his summoned mist automatically started clearing, showing Sakura next to an unconscious but breathing Sasuke, and Haku still trapped in Naruto's strings. Unseen by both, Naruto was actually starting to shake slightly due to the stress of handling the special weapon. He only hoped that he could let go of Haku soon, because if he kept on holding the weapon for too long, not only will Haku's life be in danger, so will his. However, unbeknownst to Kakashi, Naruto's predicament was not noticed and neither will it end soon. Kakashi took some precious time to catch his breath back. Gathering his strength, Kakashi performed several seals to create his only original jutsu, the Chidori, Thousand Bird/Lightning Edge. Once complete, the sounds of the thousand bird calls can be heard throughout the bridge and into the surrounding areas. Kakashi started running towards Zabuza in high speed with determination in his eyes. However, his attack was interrupted again when layers upon layers of ice mirrors emerged and stood in his way defiantly. Equals 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 equals. Naruto did his best to hold Haku away from the fight between Kakashi and Zabuza with his silver strings, but it still couldn't stop Haku from desperately trying to save Zabuza. Using the last of his strength and chakra, Haku directed his right hand to perform seals, summoning as many mirrors as possible to stand in the way between Zabuza and the rapidly approaching Kakashi. With his left hand, Haku managed to throw several needles at Kakashi's scroll on the ground to unsummon his summons. The action happened so fast that no one was sure as to the outcome of the fight. Finally, when the smoke from the resulting blast of the Chidori completely cleared, the scene showed Kakashi managing to strike all the way through Haku's mirror barriers and had his palm against Zabuza's shoulder. Zabuza seemed to be hurt, but not as much as to lead to his death. The mirrors took on the blunt of the attack, water and ice managing to absorb most of the electricity of Kakashi's Chidori before it reached Zabuza. Kakashi was surprised by this event but just managed to avoid Zabuza's big sword as it was swung to decapitate him. Landing some distance away, Kakashi took some time to survey his opponent's injuries. Left arm still working holding the sword, but the right arm is useless because the Chidori has completely pulled through all his shoulder muscles. Determining that he had a good chance to win, Kakashi continued on with the fight. However, even with one arm, Zabuza was still a formidable opponent. Though, due to Zabuza's own exhaustion, Kakashi was able to slam 2 more kunais into the elbow of Zabuza's left arm, leaving both arms broken and immobile. Kakashi was just preparing to launch again when the infamous Gato appeared out of nowhere with many henchmen behind him sneering and laughing at the current combatants. Gato sneered coldly at Zabuza and Haku as well as the rest of the Konoha ninja team members. Naruto ignored his obvious insults to concentrate on how many men he had brought with him. Around 50 or so. I can handle them with Jinshur no Haimo. Naruto thought as Gato finished off his irritating speech and called his men to attack. However, Gatu surprised all of them when he told his men to leave the snow boy, indicating Haku with his fair complexion. He wanted to take some pleasure in getting his revenge on that boy. Gatu smirked cruelly as Zabuza snarled back in anger. Naruto continued to sway rather dangerously at the moment, but still concentrated enough to hear Zabuza and Kakashi acknowledging the fact that they were no longer enemies. Relieved by that announcement, Naruto slowly but surely lowers an exhausted Haku onto the floor. But no sooner had he done that, Zabuza asked Kakashi for a spare kunai. Kakashi readily threw one towards him, that Zabuza suddenly launched towards Gatu, intending on killing him using the kunai held in his mouth. Equals 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 equals. While Zabuza ran off aiming to kill Gatu, Haku could only watch helplessly as Zabuza was stabbed time and time again on his way. After cutting off Gatu's head, Zabuza finally fell onto the ground in exhaustion. Haku then became even more frantic as all those henchmen started to advance on an unconscious Zabuza, but he was stopped by Naruto. Kakashi had told Naruto to take point because he himself had ran out of chakra with the use of his Chidori, but Naruto still didn't want to kill anyone. "I'll just threaten them a little," thought Naruto as he aimed his strings towards them and randomly grabbed onto several of the henchmen, lifting them off the ground and into the air, while sucking their energy. "If you move one more step, I will kill those already in the air and will also have the pleasure of killing the rest of you," shouted Naruto in his pissed-off mood of voice. The rest of the group became slightly nervous by the threat. Soon, however, Naruto was starting to sway dangerously again while he was still standing. Kakashi had also just noticed Naruto's odd behavior when he was distracted by Sakura's scream of joy. Behind them, Sasuke had finally regained consciousness and was just in time to watch the rest of the fight. While the henchmen were confused over what they should do next, Inari came to the rescue with the other villagers, scaring them off once and for all. Once all the chaos was done and over with, Naruto watched as Haku, forcing himself onto his feet, ran towards an injured Zabuza immediately. Naruto, firmly exhausted, knelt down on the cold ground. He noticed that his hearing was starting to dim slightly, as if he was far away from his current surrounding. His visions, too, started to blur, turning into black and white representations. "Shit, I've had it on too long." Trying to focus, Naruto stabbed his own right hand with a kunai to keep it immobile. Ignoring the distant shouts of his name, Naruto used the pain that flared up his right hand to help him concentrate more. He held his left with the palm open to the side of the silver device on his right wrist and released Kai, his summoned weapon. In a blink of a second, Naruto found himself screaming in agony as a white-hot flame burned through the inner tissues of his right arm. From the wrist to the shoulder, everything was hot and in immense pain. Muscles and blood burst out of his opening points and his veins are all singing with liquid fire. Understandably, Naruto fell into unconscious pretty quickly after such a shock. He dimly noticed that there were many cries for his name just before he passed out. He vaguely remembered that there seemed to be a lot of people worried about him. Equals 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 equals. Naruto slowly but surely opened his eyes, but he had to blink them shut again at the glare of the sun. Sensing that someone was near him, he whispered a question, since his throat hurts also. "How long?" "4 days," answered Kakashi's voice. "The fever broke early this morning." Painfully, Naruto nodded his acknowledgement and promptly fell into unconsciousness again. Equals 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 equals. The next day, Naruto recovered further from his ordeal and asked Kakashi for a status report on his health. Kakashi summarized. For 4 days straight, Naruto had been unconscious and on the verge of death due to his sudden high fever. His entire right arm was still completely immobile and useless until it healed, which in itself was already a miracle, and he will be feeling a lot of pain if he moves it even a little bit. Kakashi and Sasuke had both healed a lot due to Haku's herbal remedies, and Zabuza had died on the second day due to the severity of his injuries. Before he died, though, Zabuza had also set Haku free and wanted Haku to continue living and live happily. Due to Haku's involvement with the coup d'etat, he would be killed if he ever returned to the Hidden Mist Village. Kakashi had asked him if he wanted to return to Konoha with the rest of the group, and Haku had graciously accepted. He was extremely glad that Kakashi and the other two had accepted him, even though he had done terrible things to them in the past. When Kakashi had finished his report, the other occupants of the house took that moment to surge on an unexpected and still injured Naruto. "Naruto, you're finally awake," shouted Sakura happily as she entered the room, followed by the rest of the gang. "Naruto-Nissen, Naruto-Nissen, are you all right? You feeling better now?" screamed Inari even louder. Naruto groaned from the attention and tried to hide under his blanket, but flinched in pain due to his arm. He had forgotten that he wasn't supposed to move it just yet. "Don't move your right arm, Naruto-kun," exclaimed a familiar and yet unfamiliar voice. Naruto looked up at the same boy he had first met in the woods, as well as the same boy he had fought a few days ago. Naruto blinked. "Hi, I don't think we were ever properly introduced before." Haku smiled and giggled slightly in response. "My name is Haku. Good to finally meet you, Haku. My name is Uzumaki Naruto. I'd shake hands, but as you well know, I can't move one right now." Haku giggled again while Sasuke snorted in the background, something sounding suspiciously like, "Idiot. All right, give the guy some room to breathe." Kakashi consoled as the rest of them moved slightly away from Naruto but stayed in the same room, looking pointedly at Naruto. "So, are you going to explain yourself, or am I going to have to force you to talk?" Naruto looked back at Kakashi's determined face and sighed. There's no way for him to escape interrogation. It's called the Jinshur no Haimo, Silver Strings of Death. It's one of the Tenkin no Buki, weapons of the heavenly warriors. Kakashi blinked. "But that's just legends. There's no way that it could possibly exist." Naruto interrupted. "They do exist, and they're very powerful." Sakura looked confused. "What are Tenkin no Bukis? Kakashi-sensei?" Kakashi paused to gather his thoughts. Thousands of years ago, when demons still rule this realm and humans are always living in fear of them, the first of the shinobi people whom specialize in chakra studies decided to rid the world of demons to create a peaceful world. However, because they were weaker than the demons, they started experimenting and created weapons that would be able to rival the power of such demons. The first of these super powerful weapons were called the Tenkin no Buki, or the weapons of the heavenly warriors. It is said that they are so powerful, they always inflict pain and injuries on the opponent as well as the user, so only a selected few could possibly handle any of these weapons successfully. When all 10 of these weapons are in use, no demon will ever stand a chance, and so the demons soon disappeared or went into hiding. When it is concluded by our ancestors that these weapons are too dangerous to be kept by humans, lest they be used for war against one another, the 10 Tenkins no Bukis were either hidden or destroyed, and since then, they have become only legends or myths. And you're saying that you've not only found one of these legendary weapons, you can actually use it too? Sasuke interrupted thoughtfully, wondering if he could use one of these weapons as well. "No!" Naruto exclaimed. "They aren't to be used by people, or they shouldn't." Looking straight at an annoyed Sasuke, Naruto continued his explanation. "These weapons cannot be used by just anyone. They kill their user just as they kill their opponent. You don't understand, Sasuke. They crave blood. These weapons are alive and they think. They have desire and they will use all forms of seduction to get what they want. No human can handle them without either dying or going insane and killing thousands." "Then how come you can handle it?" scoffed Sasuke angrily. "They chose me," Naruto whispered sadly. "I am one of only a few people in the world that can handle them. It is a hereditary trait in my family, like a bloodline limit." Sakura was about to interrupt the argument when Kakashi stepped in with a question of his own. Why is it in your possession? Naruto smiled in a very self-condemning way. Because it has been my mission to find, collect, and learn about all 10 Tenkan no Bukis for the last 2 years of my life. Kakashi's eyes widened. You mean all that time that you've been traveling with Jiraiya-sama is to find these damn things? When Naruto nodded slightly in acknowledgement, Kakashi was still confused. Why? Naruto answered secretively, because it is my destiny. A few days later, with Naruto slightly healed from his ordeal and able to travel, the group finally sets out to return home to Konoha. On the day they decided to leave, the entire village had turned out to thank them. Inari, especially, started to cry and Naruto hugged him awkwardly with only one hand. Naruto then whispered into Inari's ear that his father would be proud. Inari smiled. Once they have left, Tazuna asked one of the villagers if they could call the bridge the Great Naruto Bridge. Watching as Naruto slowly but surely made his way unsteadily across the bridge, they agreed. Chapter 5. After 3 weeks since the group's return to Konoha, life seemed to revert back to its original stasis of boring missions and dull events. Due to his severe injuries, Naruto was unable to use his right hand at all. As a result, he was taken off the active list and put on the injured list of currently available ninjas for work, which meant he did not have to participate in tedious D-rank missions that Team 7 still had to complete on a daily basis. However, that also meant that his days were spent bored out of his mind with nothing to do. This then led to the strengthening of his relationship with their ex-enemy, Haku. The mutual respect shared between the two had grown into a close-knit friendship whereby they share most, if not all, of their secrets with one another. Haku had moved in with Naruto and Jiraiya due to the shortage of free apartments currently in Konoha. Naruto didn't mind, Jiraiya was not even home most of the time, and the third Hokage wanted to give Haku a month of probation to test his loyalties. It was easy for Haku to be registered as one of Konoha's Chunins, since the only requirement was that he must prove his loyalty to the protection of Konoha and to follow the Hokage's orders. Since Haku had nowhere else to turn to with Zabuza dead and considered a missing nin in the mist, he completely agreed to abide by these conditions. After the registration, Haku opted to become a medic nin and was forced to undergo the special training for becoming medic nins. Needless to say, he was a genius and picked up the art quickly. The only downside was that he had to wear those ridiculous outfits if he were to officially attend to patients. Naruto had never stopped teasing him about it. It was during one of these boring days when Haku had a day off that he helped Naruto clean up and decorate his room. It wasn't that the room was dirty or messy per se. It's just that Naruto had very plain tastes and his room was practically empty. Except for a futon on the floor, the only other furniture in the room was a closet and a table, with no chair. Haku's eye twitched at the uninhabitable blandness of Naruto's room. So, he decided that they had to paint the walls of the room a different color from the original pale white, as well as buy several more furniture to give the room some life. Completely bored, Naruto complied to help since it was his room being decorated. Firstly, they had cleared the room of all objects, 3 furnitures, to get the painting done as soon as possible. Then they opted to wait for the paint to dry while they shopped around for other decorative features to be placed in the room later. However, Haku was just helping Naruto carry the closet out when one side compartment of the closet opened and a small wooden box fell out of it. The two of them managed to get the heavy closet out of the room and went back to search for the dropped box. Upon seeing the old and worn box, Naruto froze in mid-step. Haku, curious as to what made Naruto suddenly froze, asked, "Naruto? What's wrong?" Seeing Naruto's gaze firmly locked onto the box without pause, Haku looked back at the inconspicuous box with a confused expression. He walked towards it and knelt down, picking it up as he continued to look it over. It was a small, old wooden jewelry box. Not sure why Naruto owned one of these, Haku asked curiously. "What's in it?" Naruto blinked, as if coming out of a trance. He picked it up from Haku and moved towards his bed in silence. Haku, picking up the silent hint from his friend, followed him and sat next to the blonde boy on the futon. Finally, Naruto spoke. "They are gifts from the past." With that strange answer, he slowly opened the box. Inside, there were a variety of items that both seemed old and worn, yet they were all kept in perfect condition. There was a small ninja-like scroll, with Naruto's name written on top of it in script-like fashion. A few dried flowers all bunched together using an old rubber band. They seems to be a variety of Anthemis tinctorial, thought Haku as he remembered the list of wildflowers that he had seen throughout his life. Another item within the box was a sort of rope-like object with a deep green jade amulet attached to it. All were curious objects, but Haku waited for Naruto to gather his thoughts before he was ready to explain the history of each of the items. Naruto slowly and gently picked up the first item, the scroll, as if it would disintegrate if he held it too tightly. This, he indicated the small scroll, is the only thing my father left me. Haku blinked, and his mouth hung open slightly in shock. I never knew it was his. All I have ever known was that it had been with me since a very long time ago. Sighing slightly, when I packed up to leave Konoha 6 years ago, I found it again. At first, I wanted to dump it, but I guess, since I have so little belongings in the first place, I didn't want to lose something of my past, so I kept it. The next time I played with it, Jiraiya saw me, and he was the one who told me that my father left this for me just before he died. Shaking his head as if to ward off the impending memories, Naruto continued. I thought I was given the world. Smiling slightly, you see, I could never open the stupid scroll in the first place. Jiraiya said that the Yondaime had put some kind of chakra seal on it that is semi-permanent. The seal is supposed to last until my 18th birthday before it disintegrates, and finally letting me read what is written inside. How my father managed to put this type of seal on it, I don't know. But since then, I've kept it as safe as possible. Moving on to the next item, the rope with a jade amulet. Naruto reverently picked up the object and looked at it with slight awe in his eyes. This belonged to my mother. Haku looked at Naruto, stunned, but just had to ask, I thought you never knew your mother? Naruto shook his head. No, I never did. She died during my birth. Putting the piece delicately down, back into the box. She was a diplomat, or a representative, something like that from another country. Haku blinked again, and Naruto smirked at his confused expression. I may not know her, but I've met some people who have. Continuing on with his story, Naruto said, she came to Konoha around 15 years ago, I think, and soon fell in love with my dad. Or at least that's what I've heard, from Jiraiya and from the third Hokage. Naruto's smile faded. It was a forbidden relationship and they never did get married officially. She stayed here illegally, without the permission of her country's leader. Haku could just barely hear Naruto's whispered words. You know, how can a person miss someone they've never met before? Haku fought back his own tears as his own memories cascaded into his mind. Naruto, on the other hand, didn't cry or flinch, he just looked on sadly. For a long time, the two remained silent. That was, until Naruto turned to ask Haku. What's it like? Having a family, I mean. Haku gave him a very sad smile. I was happy. My parents weren't rich, but we lived a simply lifestyle and it suited us just fine. Pausing to gather his thoughts, Haku continued. They cared for me very much, and I loved them back. They took care of me when I was sick, sang me to sleep when I had nightmares, and always looked out to protect me in any way. Loosing the battle against his emotions, a tear ran down Haku's pale face. Naruto pulled slightly away from Haku, not lifting his head to face him. I'm sorry. I shouldn't bring all that up. Haku shook his head and wiped away the tears. No, it's okay. It was good to remember the happier times. Looking back at Naruto, who still hadn't turned to look back at him, Haku sighed. I just can't imagine what it's like. Living, never knowing what your parents were like at all, never knowing who you are, and never having anyone to have cared. Taking a deep breath, Haku continued. I think you're stronger than me, Naruto, in that respect. Naruto shook his head but refused to look up. No, I don't feel the pain of losing someone close because I've never known who they were in the first place. I didn't feel the loss because I'm not sure exactly what I have lost. I admire you, Haku. To be able to give your heart out again when you have felt the pain of lost and then lost it again. To be able to pick up a shattered heart and mend it time and time again. That takes true strength. Haku smiled at Naruto's encouragement, but knowing nothing he could say would change Naruto's opinions on his own weaknesses. Naruto is just like that. He can never take compliments from other people, and yet he is always so difficult to impress in the first place. Haku sighed ironically but decided to change the subject. What about the flowers? He asked gently, but to his surprise, Naruto fell into a deeper depression at the mention of the flowers. If it was possible, the mood in the room plummeted into a cold atmosphere. A long pause ensued in which no one moved. Haku didn't because he didn't know what kind of landmine he had just put himself into with that statement of his, and Naruto because he's still trying to collect himself emotionally. Finally, attempting to lighten the mood, if at all possible, Haku broached the subject lightly. You don't have to tell me, Naruto, if you don't want to. Naruto finally reacted by shaking his head. No. It's just that this story is even worse than the one of my parents. He paused. I told you before I don't seem to feel the same pain as you and Sasuke when it comes to the loss of my parents, mainly because I've never known them. So this pain comes in the form of a black hole, one that will never be filled but it doesn't engulf me, it just stays the same size all the time. The first time I have ever lost someone close, picking up the flowers, Naruto gazed at them sadly, was when I met Ellie. Ellie? Asked Haku softly. Blank eyes stared at the flowers as if Naruto himself is somewhere else, probably reliving his nightmare. It was the first time I had killed someone too. Haku's eyes widened in suspicion. You didn't, pausing in slight apprehension. Kill her, did you? Haku whispered. Naruto shook his head as Haku visibly sighed in relief. He had been afraid that Naruto had done the same thing he did, killing someone dear to them, because of their own hysteria and awakened powers. Swallowing his own apprehension, Naruto began the story of Ellie. Ellie was born blind. Shaking his head, Naruto restarted his story. Almost 3 years ago, when I lived in one of the villages on the borders of the Earth Country, I met up with a 5-year-old blind girl, selling flowers on the street corner. Jiraiya had left me for 2 weeks alone because he had to do some information gathering or whatever business he had, and I was bored. So I spent some time talking to Ellie and she became my first real friend. She was 5 and I had just turned 9, so I was rather protective of her, always helping her against the local bullies and all. Naruto smiled self-depressingly. She was poor, her father was an alcoholic and a gambler, so she was trying to earn enough money to pay off his debt, as well as earn some extra to find a doctor to heal her eyes, but she could only sell flowers. Naruto laughed at the irony, hiding his face behind his hands as he leaned forward trying desperately to control his raging emotions. His soft and almost broken voice continued. I tried to heal her eyes, but she was born with the blindness, so I couldn't do anything with my chakra. She wanted to see how beautiful the world was. She wanted to see the world described by her mother before the women had died almost a year prior, all those colors and wildflowers. I wanted to help her so much. Compared to her, my pain seemed inconsequential. But one day she didn't come to sell flowers anymore. She just wasn't there when I visited her at that particular street corner. I went again and again, day after day, and I started becoming worried. She was my only friend after all. I asked around for her house and finally found it. Naruto's body shuddered slightly as the memories continued to bombard him. Haku placed a firm hand onto Naruto's shoulder as a show of support and anchor. And Naruto had to let this out somehow. He needed to let go of it, and Haku made sure that today was the day. Slightly stumbling with the words, Naruto continued. Her father was there, drunk and crying. I demanded to know where Ellie had disappeared to. Did you know what he said? For the first time in the conversation, Naruto looked up at Haku, and Haku was shocked at the amount of anguish being displayed right there in Naruto's ever-blue eyes. Shivering, Haku shook his head. He sold her as a slave. Naruto spoke calmly. Haku's eyes widened to their maximum capacity but managed to stop his shuddering and tried to gather himself under control soon after. God, I have heard from Zabuza that there are still places in the world where people practice slavery, but I hadn't encountered any yet. Sure, I've seen a lot of bad places, poor and shady, but nothing like this. Taking a deep calming breath, Haku turned to look at Naruto again, determined to help the smaller boy through his ordeal, if only in remembering it. Squeezing Naruto's shoulder as a sign that he was still there, Haku whispered softly, "I'm so sorry." "That's not the worst of it yet," answered Naruto in a whisper of his own. Haku nodded in comprehension and held onto Naruto's shoulder firmly as he continued with the rest of the story. "I was so angry at the man that I almost killed him there and then. I demanded to know whom he had sold his own daughter to, and found out that it was the same gang that the man had owed money to. So I went looking for Ellie, hoping that I wasn't too late, hoping that I could save her. I found them all right and found Ellie too." Naruto began shuddering and dry sobbing as the tears just refused to come, no matter how painful it was to relive the nightmare. "I found her battered and broken body in a pit they've dug for all their trash." The silence that hung from that statement continued for a long while before any of them could swallow the truth. "And I just lost it," Naruto finally said. "I foxed out." 3. Haku closed his eyes in understanding, knowing that Naruto's term of foxed out meant that he had given in to the Nine Tails' hunger for death and destruction. "I lost control of my powers when I watched my father kill my own mother. I panicked and in my fear had caused the death of my own father." Naruto lost control of himself due to anger and hate. He must have been completely overwhelmed by grief and so much rage that he had killed his first person. "I killed them all. Every last one," confirmed Naruto, with his head buried into his own hands, body shivering. Both boys stayed in silence, taking comfort from one another for a long while. "When I finally came to, I was covered in blood. Everything was splattered with so much blood. Every one of those gang members was dead. I just felt numb. I carried Ellie's body back home, just to find her father had hanged himself in guilt, so I buried them in a field of white flowers. And then I just sat and didn't move." Naruto paused and shut his eyes in concentration. "I don't know how long I just waited there. How many days? I just don't know. Finally, Jiraiya came for me. Soon we left that village and never returned. I've dried those flowers that I had bought from Ellie and have kept them safe ever since." Naruto concluded his story. For the first time, Haku understood why Naruto always reacted in a certain way towards people. Haku had accepted Naruto as a carrier of a demon and had believed that it was the reason why Naruto always shy away from more human contact. But that wasn't right, not completely. It was because of Ellie, the first friend he had ever had, and he wasn't even strong enough to help or protect her. He's keeping everyone away so that he doesn't feel like he needed to help them, so that he doesn't get attached to them at all. If you believe that you couldn't even save one person, how can you believe that you are strong enough to save everyone? Naruto is too kind, perhaps even more than me. Naruto had helped Haku forgive himself for unconsciously killing his own parents, but Naruto himself had not forgiven himself for being unable to save Ellie. Is that why you strive to become stronger? Even though you don't want to become a ninja? To become strong enough that you won't regret ever being helpless again. For being too late. Haku gave Naruto a final squeeze for support and then let go of the blonde boy completely, watching his friend carefully as Naruto slowly wiped his face of sweat. Haku had often questioned himself why he and Naruto seemed to get along so well, more so than with Sakura and Sasuke. It wasn't just because they live in the same apartment or see each other every day. It was because they share similar pains and tragic pasts. In a sense, both of them were responsible for their parents' death indirectly, so they both had accepted each other's flaws. Haku, because he had killed his own father in a fit of panic, and Naruto for bearing the demon responsible for his father's death. Today, Haku had discovered something else that was similarly shared between them, their first killing experience. For the rest of the day, the two boys rested and just didn't have it in them to continue with the room renovation. There will be time tomorrow for that. For now, both are too raw with emotion and just didn't have the strength to do anything. They slept through the day and the night in their emotionally exhausted state, but satisfied that from now on, they no longer had to face their demons on their own. Haku had Naruto to back him up, and Naruto, in turn, will have Haku's support to keep him sane. Equals 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 equals. A few days later, both boys had recovered from their emotional upheavals and had finally completed the room renovation. Today, however, Haku needed to work, so Naruto was left to his own boredom because he still couldn't participate in missions yet. He had healed enough to practice some jutsus, but not enough for doing the more powerful seals, unless he wanted to cause further damage to his right hand and arm. So there he was, strolling down a street, when suddenly, a kid turned the corner and ran in the opposite way to him. The boy of around 8 tripped over his own feet just before reaching Naruto. Naruto lifted one delicate eyebrow at what an amusing sight this boy presented, tripping over himself. The child suddenly reacted in retaliation, pointing his finger at Naruto. "Hey, you're the one who purposely tripped me, aren't you?" Naruto lifted his other eyebrow in surprise. "Excuse me," Naruto replied. "I know you did something," the boy exclaimed. "Do you know who I am? I'm the third Hokage's grandson, Konohamaru-sama. Now, hurry up and apologize to me or else I won't forgive you," demanded the newly introduced Konohamaru, as he expected Naruto to immediately bow to him in respect. Naruto's eyes narrowed in suppressed anger. Who the hell does he think he is, ordering people like that? It's his own damn fault for tripping his own bloody feet. To the boy's surprise, however, Naruto didn't even bat an eye towards him and continued on his walk without offering a word. When he passed Konohamaru, though, Naruto shifted his right leg quickly and intentionally tripped Konohamaru for real this time. Hearing the thump of the boy hitting the ground as well as the boy's yelp of pain, Naruto smiled as he walked away from the scene, looking as innocent as possible, feeling very satisfied with himself. Equals 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 equals. A few hours later found Naruto standing alone at the hero's memorial stone. He comes here often, at least once daily, to honor his father. To Naruto, this place was probably the closest place where he would ever get towards his father, other than the man's graves. Suddenly, Naruto felt as if he was being watched. He sneaked a peek behind him and found a weird square box that was supposed to be patterned to look like a rock, though a box nonetheless with 2 holes at the front. Smiling as he realized that the boy from before had followed him, Naruto decided to have some fun and test these intruders. He took 2 steps to the right. The box followed him. Naruto then took 2 steps to the left. The box again followed his movements. After a while of contemplation, Naruto decided to confront the brats hiding underneath the box. He turned around completely, pointing at the suspicious box, and says, "What do you want?" The normal intro of the Konohamaru Corps. So for those of you not interested, skip ahead. For impressive. I should have expected that from the man whom I have high hopes for. The box replied and suddenly exploded, releasing 3 different colored smoke before clearing and revealing the 3 kids. "Hey, you used too much gunpowder," coughed Konohamaru as he spoke with his other teammates. Naruto raised his eyebrows again. After picking themselves off the floor, the 3 kids struck poses in grand posture. The one who possesses the sex appeal of an adult, and the female ninja from the senior group, Moegi, announced the girl as she twirled around and picked a stance. The one who loves dividing numbers, Udon, proclaimed the slightly droopy-eyed boy with snot hanging out of his nose, also making a pose. The village's number 1 genius ninja, Konohamaru, yelled the most energetic one out of the lot. "The 3 of us make the Konohamaru Corps." The 3 joined together in chorus and Naruto yawned in boredom. Returned Tio read, Enin. Picking his ear with a finger, Naruto took a relaxed stance and didn't even acknowledge the kids. "Yeah, what you want?" Konohamaru growled in irritation, But Moegi stepped up to Naruto and asked in a quiet voice, "Is it true what they say about you?" Naruto glanced at her puppy dog eyes and sighed. "What did they say about me? That you're really, really strong?" Moegi's mouth quivered and her puppy dog eyes got bigger. Naruto squirmed under her scrutiny. "Sort of." "Yay! See Konohamaru. I was right!" yelled Moegi, smirking at Konohamaru. Konohamaru grumbled as he walked towards Naruto. "Hey, I'll let you be our boss. In exchange, teach me something that will defeat my grandpa." Naruto raised both his eyebrows in astonishment. "Excuse me. You heard me. I want you to teach me something that will defeat my grandpa." Naruto thought it over for a moment, imagining the Hokage's face as his own grandson performing the Oiroke no Jutsu, sexy no Jutsu, that almost rendered the Hokage unconscious with blood loss. Naruto immediately had to smother his chuckle before he breaks out into an all-out laugh. This is such a good opportunity. Looking back at Konohamaru's hopeful eyes, Naruto answered, "All right, but remember, this ain't a picnic." Squatting close to Konohamaru, Naruto made it look as if he was telling the boy a secret. "The jutsu I'll be teaching is a high-level jutsu that only I know, and it can defeat any man." Konohamaru nodded vigorously as if the world had been handed out to him. Eventually, Naruto led Konohamaru deeper into the forest to train him in the use the Oiroke no Jutsu, sexy no Jutsu. For the rest of the day, they stayed there and Naruto had to smother his laughter so many times during Konohamaru's practice. It was giving him a stomach ache. After practicing for 4 hours, Naruto decided to give Konohamaru a rest. "By the way, why are you after your grandpa?" Naruto asked curiously. "Skip if you already know it." "Grandpa gave me the name Konohamaru. I'm named after the village. But even though everyone is used to that name here, nobody ever calls me that. Whenever everyone sees me or calls me, all they see is the Hokage's grandson. Nobody sees me as me. I'm sick of that. That's why I want the Hokage name so much," answered Konohamaru seriously. "Return to read." Naruto blinked. He didn't believe that Konohamaru would ever be so passionate about something so serious. After he thought about it a bit more, Naruto realized that they were similar. Konohamaru is the grandson of the third Hokage and no one acknowledged him as him. Instead, they see him as simply the Hokage's grandson. He himself is the son of the fourth Hokage and no one acknowledged him as him, mainly because 1. They don't know that he is the fourth Hokage's son, and 2. They only see him as the demon fox. I can understand what a burden that name must be and how much it hurts when you are seen but what the other people actually see isn't you at all. It's something else entirely. The Hokage name isn't so easy that any brat could take it. Naruto explained almost subconsciously. "What?" Konohamaru cried in indignation, but Naruto was just as confused by what he had said and concentrated on his previous train of thought. "Yes, that's right. Being the Hokage isn't easy at all." Naruto thought sadly. "My father sacrificed himself for the village. He sacrificed me, his own flesh and blood, for this village. Not everyone can make that kind of sacrifice or that kind of decision. That's why he was a Hokage, a hero. He bears the responsibility of Konoha's protection and prosperity, no matter what the cost to himself and his family. The village always comes first." Flashback, sometime beforehand, not sure when. "Why don't you aim for the Hokage title?" Haku asked genuinely. "What?" Naruto sputtered. Haku giggled at his response but continued with his line of thinking. "If you're so obsessed about finding out why your father would give up your life as well as his own for this village, as his title of Hokage dictates, why not follow his path right to the very end and become Hokage yourself? In that sense, you will most definitely see what he sees, feel what he feels, and understand his reasoning better. Instead of looking at it from an outsider's point of view, take it straight from his point of view." "But I'm not my father, Haku," Naruto argued. "So, doesn't mean you can't take the same path. And anyway, that will prove to the villagers here once and for all that you are a great ninja, not just the carrier of the demon fox, but a real person. Force them to acknowledge your existence. Make them see the truth that they have been hiding from all this time. Haku urged. But they won't change their minds about me, Haku. Don't you understand? It's too late for any reconciliation. I'm already very happy over the fact that they haven't sent any more murder attempts on my life, let alone force them to continue seeing the face that they hated so much. I'm tired of fighting this, Haku. I just want to let it go, Naruto said tiredly. Now that is exactly your problem. You're too afraid to try. Naruto, don't you get it? If you never try to change or confront the problem head-on, nothing will change and you'll be forever unsatisfied. I, for one, was told by Zabuza-san that I have great potential and that I'll be able to do whatever I want. And you were the one that told me to follow my own path of the shinobi, not to become just another tool of war. You taught me how to develop my own dreams and follow my own way without regrets. You gave me that freedom and now you're telling me you can't break out of yours. That's bullshit and you know it, Haku insisted. Naruto sighed and kept quiet while Haku continued to badger him. Please, Naruto, just think it over. It may be your only chance to change all these people's opinions of you. It will be your chance to completely eradicate your fear of people by forcing yourself to face them head-on. Stop running away and follow the path that your own father had set out for you. Naruto gazed at Haku steadily. How do you know that my father would want me to become a Hokage like him? Haku smiled. I don't. But I know that if you do, he'll be very proud of you. End flashback. Looking back at Konohamaru's determined face made Naruto realize he too, like Konohamaru, should fight for recognition, not just sit idly by and wait for someone to do the work for them. Haku was right. I am being a coward. Thank you, Konohamaru. It's your words that gave me my absolution. Naruto smiled at Konohamaru and told him straight. The title of Hokage, if you want that name so much, then what? Demanded Konohamaru. Then defeat me first because I want it just as bad as you. Naruto smirked. Konohamaru lost his indignant expression immediately and displayed a confused and shocked face instead. I have found you, came a voice from up in a tree. Damn, I was so focused on my own thoughts that I didn't even realize I had company. Naruto silently chided himself as he looked up towards the man in dark blue ninja attire and wearing dark sunglasses. Seeing the cold and ruthless eyes that gazed back at him through the sunglasses, Naruto's anger flared. Damn them and their cold attitudes. I'll show them all, Naruto thought angrily. Jumping down, the man, probably Konohamaru's sensei, replied. Come now, young master. Let's go home. Geese. Konohamaru was right when he said all they saw was his grandfather's image and not his real name. Naruto felt sorry for the boy. No, I'm going to defeat Grandpa and get the Hokage name now, yelled Konohamaru as he started performing the Oiroke no Jutsu, sexy no Jutsu. Naruto ignored the man's continual words about what a Hokage should be like. From what I've heard from the pervert Sannin, my father, the famous fourth Hokage was nothing like what this man's description of a Hokage should be. It's true. From Jiraiya's earliest memories, the Yondaime was actually a prankster and a lazy bum in his youth. A real genius, but a prankster nonetheless, and it took him a while to accept responsibility. 5. The Yondaime would use any and every chance he gets to rest and relax, and he disliked stressing over state issues. Sure, when it comes to crunch time, the Yondaime always found a solution to the problem at hand, but it doesn't change the fact that a lot of people actually view the Yondaime as the most lazy one out of all the Hokages of Konoha. Well, that was Jiraiya's description anyway. The Oiroke no Jutsu, sexy no Jutsu, performed by Konohamaru did nothing else except enrage his teacher, and the man started sputtering about what a vulgar skill it was and such. Naruto lost his patience as the man continued to insult his special skill. He decided to perform the next level of Oiroke no Jutsu to punish the man, called the Harem no Jutsu. This jutsu was specifically created to cater for the likes of Jiraiya. It is probably the most powerful of its kind and will most definitely defeat that Konohamaru's teacher. Naruto smirked in satisfaction. As the 20 naked Narutos take turns seducing the man, it was no surprise to Naruto that the man eventually spurted out a lot of blood from his nose and was rendered unconscious by the move. The bunshins all disappeared then, leaving a very satisfied Naruto behind. Damn it! I couldn't even defeat my own tutor. I really want a name that people will acknowledge. But why? Yelled Konohamaru continuously, which drew out both Moegi and Udon from outside the forest, running towards them to see what the fuss was about. Naruto decided to shut the boy up by hitting Konohamaru's head in irritation. It's not that easy, stupid. This is the Hokage name we're talking about here. The name of the greatest ninja in this entire village. Do you really think people will give you that name just because you want it bad enough? You moron. You have to work damn hard to make the people you want to acknowledge you. If you truly want that name, then you're gonna have to work for it. So you better prepare yourself, Konohamaru, said Naruto seriously as he turned around, preparing to leave the group. Konohamaru tilted his head in confusion. Prepare for what? If you want it that badly, the name of Hokage, I mean, then there ain't going to be any shortcuts. You're gonna have to earn it just like everyone else. Prove you deserve the name through your hard work. That's the only way you'll succeed, Naruto said as he continued to walk away. Konohamaru blinked in understanding and he suddenly remembered what Naruto had told him beforehand. Bah! Stop lecturing me, you jerk. You're no longer my boss anymore. From now on, Naruto-niken, we're rivals. Rivals for the name of Hokage, yelled Konohamaru, and Naruto waved his left hand behind him in acknowledgement. I'll be looking forward to it, Konohamaru, were the last words from Naruto's lips as he left the Konohamaru Corps. Equals 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 equals. For the rest of the day, Naruto had a silly little smile on his face. It disturbed all the people around him because they all knew that Naruto wasn't the kind of guy that would smile often, if at all. It took Haku several tries to get Naruto to talk, but when he finally told him that he had decided to aim all the way to become Hokage, Haku just grinned at him in support. Yes. Now, I have a dream. My dream is to become Hokage. Someday. Are you proud of me, father? Are you smiling up there in heaven? Glad that I've chosen this path? I won't run away anymore, father. I won't, and I promise you, I will become a proud ninja. Chapter 6. Monday found Naruto sitting at the local ninja hospital early in the morning, awaiting his weekly medical checkup since being listed on the injured list of available shinobis. A full month had passed since his return from the Wave Country, and everyone seemed to be busy except for him. Proving himself useful, Haku had been put under more and more workload, resulting in the lessening of contact between him and Naruto. Jiraiya was still around causing havoc with the local female population, while Naruto tried his very best not to be associated with the pervert Sannin at all times, especially during the day. Irika was busy with the next batch of students at the academy and rarely have time to even go out for dinner, let alone spend time with Naruto. Kakashi, Sasuke, and Sakura had visited him once. Sasuke had to be dragged there, but the time spent in their presence was short, and ever since, each of them seemed to have their own things to do. Bored out of his mind, Naruto could only hope that he proved to the doctors soon that he was fit for duty again. Even doing boring missions had to be better than staying home all the time doing nothing. Startled by the nurse calling his name, Naruto moved gracefully into the doctor's room for his checkup, hoping against hope that he'd be put in the active duty list again. Fortunately for him, Lady Luck seemed to be with him today. After a few minutes of analysis, the doctor gave him the all-clear for active duty. However, Naruto was thoroughly warned by the doctors not to exert himself too much, because his right wrist and arm was still in the healing process. If the strain put on them exceeded their limits, especially when performing dangerous jutsus, then the ligaments and muscle tissues may well be completely destroyed the next time around, leaving Naruto paralyzed in one arm for the rest of his life. Ignoring the much-emphasized warning, Naruto skipped happily away from the hospital. Looking back at the rising sun of the morning, Naruto realized that if he hurried, he could still catch up with Sasuke and Sakura for today's mission. Equals 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 equals. Running towards the bridge area where his group usually met up for missions. His arrival surprised both Sakura and Sasuke, who were already there waiting for their errant and late sensei. Naruto, what are you doing here? Asked Sakura in a happy but still slightly concerned voice. In the background, Sasuke merely arched an eyebrow at his entrance, but the dark-haired boy smirked nonetheless. I've been released into active duty again. As long as I don't overexert myself, I'll be fine, smiled Naruto. Ever since his return to Konoha, it has been easier for him to smile at people, which made both him and the people surrounding him feel more welcomed and at ease. That's great, Naruto. Sakura smiled sincerely. Welcome back. Hi. Welcome back, Naruto-kun. A voice from above startled them all. The genins of Team 7 looked up in surprise at Kakashi. It seems as he's earlier than usual today. He smiled encouragingly at his favorite team for a long time. Well, let's get going then. And for the rest of the day, Naruto had a small smile stuck on his face. No matter how insignificant and stupid the boring D-rank mission was, it was still satisfying to be doing something. Although Naruto had done the least amount of work in this particular mission, he had spent most of the time analyzing how far Sasuke and Sakura had come with their training. Naruto was silently impressed. Both of them had improved from their time in the Wave Country. Seems Kakashi-sensei had spent some time teaching them new jutsus. Taking a break during the mission, Naruto asked them what they had learnt. Sakura explained to him that Kakashi had been mainly focusing on teaching them what he believed were things that suited their physical and mental stamina at the moment. Sakura herself had been learning more genjutsu techniques and improving her physical stamina and chakra control so that more sophisticated jutsus could be mastered later in time. Sasuke had been learning more elemental jutsus, mainly of the Katan and Doton variety, fire and earth types. Naruto nodded in excitement at his team members' improvements. They're really growing fast, especially Sasuke. When asked what he had been doing the whole month he's been away on the injured list, Naruto answered that he had been very bored. Sometimes he would purposely seek out the infamous Konohamaru Core to find some entertainment. Sometimes he would visit the library and just spend the day reading up on history or ninja techniques. Other times, when Haku was with him, they would spend it trading jutsus. Trading jutsus? You mean he's been teaching you some of his own techniques? Sakura exclaimed, and though not seeming to, Sasuke was also listening on the conversation. Well, not the ones supported only by his bloodline limit. So I can't do the special water needles attack or the demonic ice mirrors, but I have been learning some of the more normal water jutsus. Naruto answered calmly. Like what? Sasuke asked for the first time, curious as to how much Naruto had grown even though he was supposed to be taking it easy while on the injured list. Naruto smirked at him. Not telling. Sasuke glared back. Actually, Naruto had been slightly busy trying to master the new water techniques. The list of jutsus that have been taught by Haku includes Mizu Bunshin no Jutsu, Water Clone, Water Dragon Blast no Jutsu, Water Explosion no Jutsu, and Water Barrier no Jutsu. Another more unique jutsu was a combination of the water needles attack that Naruto mixed it with air temperature, of which he is able to manipulate, and created his original Aisu Shin no Jutsu, Ice Needles attack. 1. In exchange, Naruto had taught Haku some of his own jutsu, either taught to him by someone else or some his own creation, such as Bakuretsu Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Explosive Clone, Raiten Misubakuhatsu no Jutsu, Lightning Water Blast, Raiken Mahi no Jutsu, Lightning Paralysis, Churiyut no Jutsu, Healing Jutsu, and some common Fuian Jutsus, Sealing Jutsus, and Fuian Kai Jutsus, Seal Release Jutsus, all of which helped Haku in his new profession as a medic nin. Equals 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 equals. By the end of the day, all members of Team 7 were tired and ready for a rest, all except Naruto. He had been resting for a full month and would rather spend the rest of the day training. However, with Sasuke refusing, "I'm going home," Sakura apologetically busy. My mom needed my help with something. I'm sorry, Naruto. And Kakashi just disappearing. I have to submit the mission report. Naruto was left alone again. Sighing, he decided to seek out his fan club, the Konohamaru Corp. Finding the gang of brats, they somehow managed to convince Naruto to participate in a game of tag. Naruto didn't even know what the game was about, let alone wanted to participate in it. But somehow, he could never refuse Moegi's puppy dog eyes. So there he was, chasing after the three brats. Though he didn't show it, Naruto was actually very happy playing such a ridiculous game. Considering this was probably the first childhood game he had ever participated in. Since his childhood years, with no friends and family, Naruto had never played any of these children's games, mainly because nobody had wanted to play with him. Now, at least, he could indulge in these particular games and imagine as if he was still a child himself. However, the game came to an abrupt halt when Konohamaru, not looking what was up ahead of him, ran into someone dangerous. The boy looked up from his position on the ground to gaze at the irritable look on a black-clothed person. The emblem on the person's head protector declared him one of the sand shinobis. Same with the female companion standing next to him. That hurt, kid. You'll pay for that, the dark-clad boy, a few years older than Konohamaru, growled and picked up the scared boy by his long scarf and held him in the air. Konohamaru struggled, but with his short arms and legs, he couldn't do much to the older boy. Moegi and Udon immediately shouted at the boy to let Konohamaru go. But when the older boy glared at them too, they quickly retreated behind a calm and composed Naruto. Naruto narrowed his eyes at the scene but decided to be civil for the time being. However, his anger was on a short leash. Let him go, he meant you no harm. Naruto softly but firmly ordered the other boy. The other boy glared at Naruto, then smirked. And if I don't want to? Holding tightly to Konohamaru's scarf, he lifted the younger boy higher as if to threaten Naruto. Hey, we should go, Kankuro. We don't want to cause any trouble, warned the older-looking girl beside the dark-clad boy, but he didn't seem to be listening.